For the last 2 years, we've been making a horror game and documenting the whole process. And hey, look at that! We survived! So now that the game is out, kinda, I wanted to look at where it started and how we got here. Through thick and thin and all the way to now, as we've just released our challenge mode, which is causing a lot of suffering in our Discord. Grab some popcorn and enjoy every devlog back to back with some fresh insight about the development from me in between each video. Starting at the beginning.
The very beginning.
Do you remember those missing posters you used to find on the back of milk cartons? Well, hypothetically, imagine the missing person is some random adult and you're traveling through the forest to find them, except instead of doing it to rescue them, you're doing it to hunt them. And hypothetically, imagine these woods are filled with cryptid-like monsters. And keeping in mind that this is all hypothetical, imagine the reason you're hunting them is because you're part of an evil secret society that worships this giant eldritch horror pit in the ground named Elijah, and so you need to hunt down these people and feed them to the pit or be fed to it yourself. Now, what if none of that was hypothetical? That would mean that you're playing our upcoming single-player detective horror game, For the Pit. The title will probably be changed later. My name is Isaac, and I'm in charge of the game's sound, creatures, and story. I previously worked as the director of Poppy Playtime.
My name is Gunnar, and I'm the one and only programmer.
Hi, my name is Preston, and I'm the artist among many other things for the team.
The three of us met all the way back in elementary school and, about 1.5 years ago, decided we wanted to start making games together and formed Curious Fox Socks. So let me tell you about this game. It's sort of like a cross between Solo Lethal Company for the horror side and Papers, Please for the detective side. You're part of this evil society that worships Elijah, a giant pit. But Elijah is hungry, so you must enter the woods and find a missing person to feed to him. There's littered items all throughout the forest, and some of these come from your target, aka the person you're tracking down. Using the clues presented to you, as well as the info you have about your target, you'll then need to deduce what belongs to them and follow the trail. Once you find the target, you hit them over the head with a stick and carry them back to your truck. However, this forest is haunted, and the later it is in the day, the more monsters you'll find, such as a massive spider whose legs blend in with the surrounding trees, or an endlessly long worm that always knows your location. If you can escape the woods successfully, you'll return to home base and feed the pit at last. With the concept in mind, it was time to choose a style. We decided we wanted to go for a vibe reminiscent of old PS1 games, like Resident Evil or Silent Hill. Or for some newer examples in this style, there's No One Lives Under the Lighthouse and Mysteries Under Lake Ophelia. So great, we've got a solid concept. Now we just need to make it. That should be easy, right? Okay, so it's a bit hard, really hard actually, and one thing that was really gnawing at me was the detective part of the game. I wanted a formula that could be played endlessly, again, like Papers, Please. We needed a system that could generate a random person to go after, as well as generate unique items to go with them, and it needed to be made in a way where the player can get better at it over time, but never to the point where they can solve a case instantly. The player needs to continue to feel smart every time they solve a case. All of that is a lot of work to program, and worst of all, we don't even know if it'll be fun. So I needed to come up with a way for us to test if it could be fun without us actually programming it. This is a paper prototype. Here's how I made it. So first, I made these case files. This one is for Bo Benny. He's a lumberjack. In-game, you'll get this info on your flip phone. Now, a bunch of items are going to spawn in the forest, and it's our job as the player to decipher which ones belong to Bo. So, put on your trench coat and grab a cigarette. I don't smoke, so I just got this sticky note. Beat it, toots. These streets ain't what they used to be. I don't want to start a fire. So, let's say we find a baseball hat and an axe. He is a lumberjack, but it's technically possible he dropped a hat too. We need more info, and this is why we added clues. Inside of these items are sticky notes, which can give additional info. In-game, you'll see these as glowy dots on the item. First one for the hat, a logo. But this means nothing on its own, so we allowed players to take pictures of clues for extra info. According to my contact, that logo is for the headwear house, which has a mostly male customer base. And the hat is camo. Okay. For the axe, however, we have a Bearman logo. And the axe is two-handed, which, according to my contact, means it's probably for wood cutting. It seems like the axe is Bo's, but the hat would also make sense, and this was a problem. We do want players to take an educated guess, but sometimes there's just not enough info to do that. This is where the wildcard clue came in. Items that do not belong to Bo will get their wildcard clue at random. But if the item does belong to Bo, then the wildcard clue is generated to work with him. Let me show you. For the hat, it says that some white hair was left behind. and looking at Bo's case file, he's blonde. But for the axe wildcard, the item has a B on it. B for Bo, B for Benny, probably. And now we can say with almost complete certainty that this is indeed Bo's axe. Case solved. From here, I got straight to work letting people test, and seemingly, results were good. As people sorted through the items and clues, you could really see them thinking hard to figure out the answers. Of course, things might go a bit differently once it's actually in game, but we'll get to that in the next devlog. For now, we had the detective mechanics in a pretty solid place, so it was time to start creating the actual game, more specifically, the world you play in. For this, I'll pass it off to Gunner so that he can teach you.
One major aspect that we want in our game is random generation. First, let's look at terrain, as who would want a completely flat forest? However, I'll explain something first. In game development, if you want randomness, you'll most likely use a noise texture. Using the noise texture, you can retrieve a float between 0 and 1 using X and Y coordinates on the noise texture. Amplify the value by a number, let's say 10, and you got yourself the Y coordinates of terrain. But how do I apply these numbers to a mesh? Luckily, Godot has something called an array mesh, which gives me full control of how the mesh is shaped. So after making a grid of these new meshes, terrain is done. But what about the objects? Currently, the game generates 100 by 100 chunks of the area. In each 100 by 100 chunk, there are 30 by 30 possible positions where an object can spawn. It runs through each position, has a chance to spawn an object, and if the object is assigned to that spawn, it runs another process that'll determine what object should go there based on a spawn chance that each object is assigned. The problem with this approach is that it's not very flexible. For the longest time, random generation has confused me. How does one go from a few noise textures to full-fledged terrain with hundreds of different structures and objects like Minecraft? Our answer actually lies within Terraria. Long story short, they use noise textures to paint on an image in code and assign each pixel to a color, with what I assume each color having a different outcome. I tried it out and was surprised with how good this system works. Now that random generation is done for the terrain and objects, the last thing we need to randomly generate is the target's path. Using a simple formula, we generate a path that has 3 points. At each point, there will be a small area full of items, with one of the items in that area belonging to the target. Find all the clues, and you will be pointed to the target. The game has an inventory system, and it too has gone through changes. Before, it was just these simple rectangles, and using Q and E on the keyboard, you could scroll through the items. Now, it is much more immersive, with the player holding R to place the backpack down and look at its contents. Lastly, we wanted the game to have that pixelated old PS1 N64 look. Obviously, using low poly models and low res textures help, but it wasn't enough. The main thing that helped was turning the extra resolution from 1280 by 720 to 640 by 360. It gives a nice pixelated look that doesn't take away from the visuals. We also have a shader on the tree trunks that give them that PS1 jitter, but it's not currently very noticeable. The next things I'll be working on is touching up generation, the hideout, item tables, and a day-night cycle. Touching up the generation means exactly that. I still have to add a gift shop, and I would like to add more objects and structures around the map, and fully convert to the new method. The hideout needs textures, some layout adjustments, and NPC function. Items are added to the game, but their specifics are yet to be added, which is very important since these allow the player to actually do detective work and not just guess which one belongs to the player. And finally, a day-night cycle. I tried adding a cycle using a physical sky and animating its rotation, but this produced some strange results. For one, the sky just didn't look the best, and two, the sun would illuminate objects while it was below the map. So my solution is by animating the color, which produces better results in terms of lighting, but it's still not fully done.
Now, I've been having to learn a few new mediums to get that retro style feel that we're going for, and here's how I accomplished it. The first new medium I've had to learn more about is high resolution pixel art. I've done pixel art for about 7 years and professionally for only about 1.5. I've mostly stuck to lower resolution pixel art, trying to keep around 16 by 16 pixels, and this is partially due to just my fondness of the art style and the limitations, and also self-hatred. But one of the biggest reasons is because it's just what I'm most comfortable with. Now, for this project, it was definitely clear I had to step out of my comfort zone, and a big step away from that is also by getting away from that cartoony art style. Now, a good way I did this is by getting rid of those hard black outlines. Now, how do I fix this, you ask? Or maybe you didn't ask, I don't know. Well, I did colored outlines instead. So what you do is you take your black outline and replace it with a dark shade of the color that's already on the sprite. Now, by doing this, it gives the texture a more realistic look, but still keeping away from that cartoony style and distinguishing the object from the background. As for the high resolution itself, I've had to practice filling in the spaces a little better with more shading. I use methods like dithering and transitioning colors to fill the space and make it feel feel less empty and add a little bit more realism. Another great tool that I've been using to get this more realistic style, and just for pixel art in general, is by using a color blender. You choose color 1 and then color 2, and then you select how many midpoints you want, and then bam, it shows every one of those midpoints in between there, and you get a better transition of shade. One thing you don't want to do with pixel art is just make the color darker. Don't do that. Just don't. The other medium I've had to learn is 3D modeling, which, before starting work on the game, I had little to no knowledge of how to do. Look at this early 3D model. It's disgusting. This is my first attempt, to be fair, but it's disgusting. I used the program Crocotile, which is specifically made for a low poly retro art style feel. That's a mouthful. And I really enjoy it so far, and I recommend it. But I will be learning Blender soon. Now, for the models we already have in the game so far, the tree was the first up. I started by making a 2D pixel art version of the tree. This ended up helping me a lot, but honestly, it was originally because I was just hoping I didn't have to model yet. But what I did is I cut up the branches, and then I cut up the tip, and applied everything to the 3D model. And bam, you got a tree. We also have a taller variant of the tree, and how we did that is just by doubling the trunk size. Easy. Now for the branches, I used a 2D plane to apply these textures. A lot of older games did this kind of thing to save on memory and storage and all of that good old garbage. I used it out of laziness, and also to achieve the look we were going for, but mostly laziness. Although I'm still learning, I'm proud of what I made so far. Here's some other things that are in the game, backpack being my favorite, and I have many more to do, and I'm looking forward to that journey. If you have any comments or recommendations or tips or something, well, leave them in the comments, and I can read them and take note of them. I'll talk to you guys later, and I look forward to your feedback. Enjoy the rest of the video. Goodbye!
Here's a few tips from me to you. Number 1, the best way to get started is just starting. As simple as it sounds, this can be the hardest step for some. Go into it being okay with the idea of making a bad game, because you will make some bad games. Start by copying a tutorial, and from there try to make something simple like a platformer. Death's Toll is the first official game I've worked on, and trust me, it is by far the biggest. But I made a few small games throughout my life on different engines, like Game Maker and Scratch. Number 2, if you don't know how to add a feature, add it in any way you can. It doesn't matter how bad it is, you can fix it later. When I first did an inventory, it was done extremely poorly, but since I did it, I had a better grasp of it, and from there I was able to rewrite it to work better. Number 3, write out your current plan/goals. Set aside like 20 minutes a day at least to just write and plan for your game. And let's say you want an inventory, but have no idea. Break it down into 10 tiny steps that you can do. Also, if you already consume too much content on any social media, incorporate videos about game development. Consuming game development content will make you more likely to work on games. And the final one I want to say is get rid of your bad habits. It doesn't have to be all of them, but you should try to reduce them at least, or just straight up avoid them.
At this point, there was one major part of our game that was still a bit lacking. The game is meant to be a blending of tones. We want humor throughout, especially when you're talking to other members of the society, but we also want horror! Between the three of us, we ended up deciding that it would be me who was in charge of modeling the creatures of this game. One small issue, I don't know how to model creatures. So, for the first time in years, I installed Blender and got to work. This video from the Sickly Wizard was a godsend, so please go check him out. I have literally had the video left open on my computer for the past month because of how helpful it's been. Anyways, we wanted the first monster that we added to the game to be easy, so here's what we settled on. From a mysterious hole in the forest, a freakish worm with an endlessly long body will emerge and slowly but surely track towards the player through the forest. I cannot draw, so I decided to use the next best thing, references! And this creature known as the Mongolian deathworm seemed to fit the bill perfectly. In Blender, I started with a simple circle and then extended it out on both sides before shrinking the sides to create that segmented look. Then I added another circle, this time with only 3 sides, and shaped it into a long sharp tooth. From here I wanted to just copy and paste the teeth around the whole mouth, but it became obvious very fast that that wasn't gonna work. So instead, I made the teeth a little more random and jagged and then copied them everywhere. I took the inside of the mouth and made it dark, changed the shape of the headpiece to give it a more distinct look, and finally added a bunch of rows of teeth. Then with some texturing and final touches, it was looking pretty good. Comment any name ideas for this guy. Now with the model more or less done, we need to actually put it in the game, but sadly that'll have to wait until the next devlog. In the meantime, I was also able to create the rough human model that we'll use for the targets, the other pit chanters you'll find around the base, who are intentionally both a bit silly and a bit scary, and the pit itself. Elijah. The target and pit still need texturing, however. I also put in some work on another one of the game's monsters, the tree spider, but that'll have to wait till until next time too. The upcoming weeks of development will be focused primarily on getting AI for some of the game's creatures and finally implementing a couple monsters into the forest, along with cleaning up the game a bit so that it's playtester ready. We've got some pretty intense development ahead of us as we fill up the game with all the missing beats, such as a gift shop where you can buy and upgrade special tools, a finished hideout with creepy NPCs, 8 to 10 unique monsters roaming throughout the forest, and much more. Anyways, thanks for watching, stay tuned to see what comes next, and we'll see you soon. We were so wide-eyed at the start of development, kind of thought just like everything was gonna work out nice. And the first video got like 15,000 views in a month, which is not, crazy, but for our little kind of startup, it was a pretty big deal to be seeing those kinds of views. At the start, we thought we could probably finish the game in like 4 months, which was not a very realistic estimate we would come to find, but we would try our best nonetheless. We've been making this horror game, but it's still got one pretty big problem. It's not scary yet. So enough is enough. We've looked at a ton of cryptids and SCPs for ideas. Now all we need to do is design our own and code them into the game. Let's talk about what that was like. I'm Isaac.
I'm Gunner.
I'm Preston.
And we're making For the Pit. In case you're new, here's a quick recap. You've joined a secret society that worships a horrifying pit in the ground named Elijah. The pit needs to be kept fed, so you're tasked with entering the woods and tracking down missing people. You'll find items littered about, and you have to figure out which ones belong to your target and which ones didn't. Then once you find your target, you knock them out and bring them back to home base while avoiding cryptid-like monsters. And actually, in a few short days, we're opening up very early playtesting for the game, so stick around to the end if you want to hear about that. We've made a ton of changes and additions to the game over the past month, so let's talk about the highlights, the lowlights, and what went into designing our first monsters. Starting with me! Last month I showed off the worm I modeled and got a lot of good feedback. Mainly, people pointed out that it was a bit generic. So I had the idea of giving the worm 2 big arms out of its sides. Then Preston had an alternate idea of giving the worm a single arm from out of its mouth. We asked a bunch of people to see what they preferred and it was super split. So we decided, why compromise? The people deserve both. When the sun's up, the worm will slowly drag itself using the single arm from its mouth, but once the sun sets, it'll swallow its own arm and grow 2 from its sides. I could not, however, figure out how to hide the extra arms that weren't in use, so they're just under the ground. I looked up a bunch of YouTube tutorials so I could learn how to rig, made the animations, and sent it off to Gunner so he could be tortured by the AI. Of course, we wanted more monsters than just the worm. I had the idea early on of a spider so large that its legs would blend in amongst the trees. A bit of modeling work and I came out with this. It'll leave giant webs around the forest, and if you walk underneath it, well, you don't want to walk underneath it. We also figured it'd be nice to have some friendly critters, so I quickly modeled a deer and a rabbit. There's a lot more monsters on the way, but the spider and worm seemed like good starting points. Now on the detective side. In our last devlog, I talked about this paper prototype I made for the game. Well, it's been implemented. Now you can move items around and freely inspect each one for clues. As a reminder, the goal here is to sort through all the items you find and figure out which one belongs to the person you're tracking. And right off the bat, the system had no issues whatsoever and was absolutely perfect. There's a lot of complex systems I wrote up, over 70 pages of them, to determine the odds of which items generate and with which clues. This is great as it adds infinite replayability, but has the very big downside of sometimes generating a combination that's just impossible to decipher. You can get unlucky and end up with 2 items that both seem right, and therefore have to take a shot in the dark, which, when you get it wrong, just feels unfair. Our goal is this. If you investigate the items thoroughly, you'll be able to pick out the correct one every time. I've got a lot of ideas on how to help reach this goal, but we need to implement it first, so I'll talk about that in a future devlog. Now, if only there was a handsome programmer to talk about the other stuff we did.
In the last video, these are the tasks I sought out to complete, and luckily I actually got a good amount done. For the first, we fully converted the generation to the image format that I mentioned in the previous devlog. Also, instead of a giant wall at the world boundary, it is now a fence. Lastly, I tried making a way to add flat areas, and it worked, but it needs touching up, so it's not going to be in this devlog. Next was hideout and NPC function. I didn't get around to this, sadly. Next up, item tables are improved for each item, more items are added, and the inventory got another overhaul. Instead of the grid that we had before, you can now move around objects wherever you like, and you can double click an item to inspect it. The phone is now also accessible in the inventory, as before we would open and close the backpack constantly just to open the phone and look at the target's information, but now you can do that in the backpack. And you now actually have to take pictures of the clues to get information about them. Items can have outlines based on different conditions, and attempting to link the item now has a cool build-up. Lastly, if you couldn't tell, a day-night cycle has been added. You start at noon, where it is gray and foggy, and go until midnight, where it becomes very, very dark. Now let's move on to enemies and AI. AI is tricky for two reasons. One, because the forest is randomly generated, I can't have navigation pre-baked. And two, enemy AI is just hard in general. So my solution for navigation was to have raycasts all around the enemy that are used to check for obstacles. I was able to throw this on the target, and he now runs away from the player, though he doesn't have any animation. Also, he can get stuck sometimes. We also threw in basic AI for the worm and got an animation for it crawling around. Isaac and I made a system that allows us to change the FPS on the animation. Currently we have it set at 24. The worm spawns at a random point in the forest when the last clue is found. He still has yet to have a body, but I do have an idea of how I could do that. Lastly, I want to mention that the game was switched from compatibility mode to Forward Plus mode. Blogger had the same issue for his game, and his video helped us make the switch. Basically what this means is the old-end computers can't run the game, but we get better FPS, and we can use more features. Now for a good majority of you, this doesn't affect you at all. For reference, Buckshot Roulette was also made using Godot, and also uses Forward Plus. Wait, oh shit!
It's me, Preston. I'm back, recording a voiceover at midnight on a work night, and I've been learning Blender. Now, if you remember the last video, I said how I was using Crocotile, a low-poly modeling software. Why make the switch, you may think to yourself? Well, great question. It's mostly because there are more tutorials and active support for Blender. I think Crocotile is a great program, and I may end up flip-flopping between the two. I also just find it more useful to learn a couple of programs, just so I can figure out my favorite. Anyway, enough with the ramble. Back to learning new program. I started by learning to make this bob-omb. Isn't it neat? Anyways, after learning the basics came learning how to do UVs. What are UVs, you may ask? Well, they stand for, uncooperative textures or something like that. I don't know, I'm still new. So I started applying these base textures I made for our human model first. I have a separate texture for the head, body, hand, and legs to make the body parts modular. With modular models and textures, it will be easier to randomly generate our targets by enabling us to easily change shirt color, shirt design, flesh tone, facial expression, and etc. After some time learning UVs, like 3 days of trial and error, I was able to come up with this. Now, is it perfect?
Please say yes, I'm so tired.
Now with these newly gained skills, I can make better looking models and textures. And what was next on the to-do list, you ask? The tree spider. The tree spider has legs that look like trees. Duh. But look up and you'll see a large hairy body and many eyes. To make the hair of the tree spider more clear, I added a pattern of darker hair on the back of its abdomen. If you have any feedback for the spider or for any of these models at all I've worked on, let me know. I'm still very new to the medium and learning. Well, that's all for me. And I want you all to remember,
goodbye!
Over the next month or so, we plan to add the tree spider to the game, update the hideout to feel much more alive, make a bunch of adjustments to the investigation mechanics, and add tools. Stuff like a flashlight, taser, fingerprint kit, gift shop pizza, and other stuff that'll help you to find your target and survive the woods. I remember that at this time we had done like a little bit of Patreon playtesting, but no like actual proper playtest, and that was mostly because we were really scared what people were gonna think, you know, because we were enjoying the game, kind of, but it kept feeling like, oh, it's not there yet, we still gotta make a few more edits and updates, and then it will be ready. And then suddenly the game is gonna just flip a switch and become good, which is not typically how game development works, unfortunately, but, you know, denial is denial. We just wanted to see what we could do, so we waited a little longer, but we did start gearing up for that big test. Over the past month, we've added new entities, new tools, new features, and new story. So welcome to a new, slightly late devlog. I'm Isaac.
I'm Gunner.
I'm Preston.
And this is our horror game For the Pit. It's been a very busy month for the game, and if you're new and have no idea what the heck I'm talking about, here's a quick recap. You are the newest member of a secret society that worships a horrifying pit named Elijah. You need to track down lost people in a monster-filled forest, following the clues that person left behind, and then bring them back to home base so they can be fed to the pit. Slowly but surely.
Because AI is one of mankind's most frustrating and difficult things to work with.
We've been adding in more monsters and adding in a working shop system with upgrades and cool tools to help you out. So, you're here, we're here, let's quit horsing around and get into it. Last month we finished the model for the tree spider. Problem was that this dude is frickin' massive, and so when it's chasing you, you can't see anything unless you look straight up. Encountering the spider should feel like,
oh! Great heavens! Tree spider.
So I used my gargantuan brain and quickly put together this animation where the spider will crouch down to your level and this animation where it'll chase you while crouched. Perfect. I also got to work on some other monsters. First was this one named Roadkill. The idea is that it'll spawn on the side of the road playing dead, but at a certain point in the night, it'll wake up and begin relentlessly guarding its territory. I was originally going in more of a weird alien rodent direction, but that wasn't really panning out. Next was this guy. And since he's not in game yet, I think I'll keep what he does a secret for now, but it's something that has been highly requested. Monsters aside, we wanted to spend this month tackling the game's economy. Currently, you'll pick up a lot of items in the forest, and once you've figured out which one's your targets, you're done and the items just sit in your inventory. So now, the player can sell those items to buy tools. We liked the idea that you'd buy and sell everything at a forest gift shop. It seemed on brand, and I thought it was important that the shopkeeper be pretty cool and mysterious, thinking of characters like the merchant from Resident Evil 4. So, what if we had a faceless shopkeeper? I quickly modeled this cute little gift shop, and then I threw in the only part of the shopkeeper that the player gets to see, his arms. He'll always be in the forest parking lot, and there you can sell him stuff and buy tools, which he'll push out to you under the shutter. All three of these characters are currently unfinished, especially the textures, but regardless, I'd love to hear your thoughts and theories for each of them. I also opted to tackle a revamp of the hideout, since the player will be coming back here after every mission. It went from this to this. Still definitely not done, but less of an eyesore. I then finally got to work on writing some story for this game and assign some personalities to everyone around the base. One of them's now the medium, aka the only one who can speak directly to Elijah. Or there's the rival, who thinks they're better than you in every way. I'm formatting the dialogue where each member will have something new to say after each mission to keep the game continuously fresh. There's some other characters, and I also plan to write dialogue for the shopkeeper, but that'll come later. I honestly found it pretty hard to strike the right balance between the dialogue being funny and being scary, so I'm hoping to collect some feedback on that in the next playtest. And as for the larger story, I want to keep it mostly under wraps for now, but I think I'm off to a good start. It should have a nice balance of horror and intrigue, with deeper secrets hidden for thorough players. And with that...
my time has come. You must continue your journey without me.
What are you... What?
A big part of our game is the investigation. Duh. Considering that the investigation mechanics will take up a good amount of the playtime, we wanted to fine-tune it even more. The first way we did this was by adding another wildcard clue to items. So instead of 3 clues, they now have 4. This alone didn't do much, but in conjunction with our new point system, this greatly improved investigation. To keep it short, any item that is connected to the target has 4 imaginary points, while items that are not have 0 to 2 points. Points are awarded for each clue that matches the target's description. This ensures that with enough skill, the player can get the item right every time. Later on, we will probably add more features to make it harder as you progress in the game. The last thing we wanted to change about the investigation was the tracking itself. The tattoo on the player's right... It's supposed to be the left. The tattoo on the player's left hand pulsates based on how close the player is to the area and if they are heading in the right direction. The system was heavily flawed. It was confusing, yet too easy, and worst of all, it was boring. My personal biggest flaw with it was that the player didn't even need to bring the hand up, since you can just listen to the audio cues, so why even bring it up? it was bothering me. With this, I present the new system. The forest is now littered with footprints and handprints to give the player info on where the target went. And with this, a whole new function for the tattoo. Holding right click for a short time will flash the screen and brighten the general direction of where the next area is. Along with this, it also pings nearby clues for the player to check and follow. This ping mechanic, I call it, has a big cooldown, so it can't be spammed. It points the player in the right direction while also making them put in a little bit more effort to find the area. I really like this system, but to be honest, it hasn't been tested enough to give a conclusion yet. I can't tell you, the viewer, if it's bad or if it's golden like Fred. Oh yeah, the tree spider. The tree spider spawns in a random part of the map and sits in its idle state. When spawned in, webs will randomly generate between trees around the general area of the spider. Walking under the spider in its idle state will cause the player to get webbed up and start going into the spider's mouth. Here, the player can struggle and break free. This will make the spider enter its chase state. In the chase state, the spider moves its body down towards the ground and starts following the player. If the player is close enough, the spider will bite the player, dealing a humble amount of health. However, if the player moves far away enough from the spider will actually return back to its idle state. Remember the webs I talked about earlier? Yeah, if you walk into those, the spider will walk towards the area and search for you. Wait. There's one more thing. The game has an economy now. Items now have a sell value and can be sold at the gift shop. You can use the money you get to buy tools or passive upgrades. Passive upgrades consist of things like movement speed, defense, and backpack carry amount, along with some others. Tools are what's most important, as the player can buy and use flashlights, espresso for temporary speed boost, pizza for health, paint bucket for marking your tracks, and so many more.
Hey guys, it's me, Preston.
Back at it again in the Blanket Fort recording booth.
I've been busy making models for our game's tools. So busy, I was able to whip up 14 models in a matter of 3 hours. However, texturing takes a good bit longer. So far, I've fully finished 7 tools completely. Textures and all. My process went something like this. I made the models for all the tools first, using a reference image fitting the look I wanted, keeping any technology around the year 2002. Hence, the Olympus FE230 camera. After all the models were done, I took the reference image and any others to try to replicate a similar layout and try to make it more visually consistent. Texturing for 3D models is still pretty new to me, so if you have any feedback or advice from what you've seen, make sure to let me know in the comments. These last couple of weeks I've found that I've been getting a lot more used to modeling and I've been enjoying it more. Inorganic models are a lot easier than organic models like a human being or a massive tree spider, so it's been a lot easier and a lot quicker of a process. Also, doing UVs for objects like these are a lot easier. Also, that rhymes. So to anybody learning Blender or just 3D modeling in general, I recommend beginning with non-organic objects. These are things like paint cans, tin cans, cans, trash cans, or even non-can related things. But lately, I've been a lot more proud of my work, and I definitely feel more confident in Blender as a program as a whole. And, this is the end of my segment. You know what that means. Goodbye. Ha, gotcha, Gunner. You thought you'd have to lower my goodbye!
Wow, we seemed so happy at the end of that video. We had no idea what was about to happen. So after that video, I had 2 of my good friends test the game, and it was 2 less than stellar testing results. It was clear that what we had our hands on was just not gonna work. That was pretty panic-inducing. It was probably the worst stage of development in terms of my mental state, and I thought, well, there goes 6 months. But we decided to stick with it and try to fix it, so here's how we approached that problem. Near the end of August, we finally got some new people to playtest our game, and it was a bit rough. At the time, you were tasked with finding a specific guy in the forest, and you did so by sorting through items to figure out which ones belonged to them, all while using a magical tattoo for directions. In testing, several problems arose. Number 1, the forest was boring. You spent so much time walking around doing nothing, and there wasn't enough monsters to pose a consistent threat. Number 2, the investigation mechanic felt like a misplaced 2D minigame in a 3D world. It broke immersion and clashed with the otherwise haunting tone of the forest. And number 3, it simply wasn't rewarding. From the player's perspective, you had to interact with these piles of items for some reason, and then eventually, without warning, run into the guy you're looking for. Players felt like they just stumbled upon the target rather than tracking them down, and in fact, they struggled to tell the difference between success and failure in general. The paper prototype we had made was fun on its own, but with the in-game context, it felt completely disconnected. So, we've got some fundamental issues. What now? Do we try to salvage what we've got, or throw stuff out and try again? Scrapping work sucks, but sometimes you just have to read the writing on the walls. So, the old investigation system? Gone. Replaced. The randomly generated forest? Not so random anymore. The monsters? Well, they can stay, sort of, but they need changes. They can't just wander around until the player happens to find them. We need them to pursue the player at all times. I'm Isaac.
I'm Gunner.
I'm Preston.
And this is our horror game, For the Pit. You've been accepted into a secret society that worships a horrifying pit in the ground named Elijah. Your job is to enter a very haunted forest and find an unlucky soul so that you may keep Elijah fed. But how will you find this person? And why do the pit chanters look like this now? Well, the game's pit chanters have always looked like this. We initially decided on the no-face, eyes-only look in hopes that everyone would wonder, what are these things? Are they even human? As we've held onto this design for a while and asked some friends their thoughts, we made a discovery. The design wasn't performing as planned. Instead of being mysterious, they were just uninteresting. So we tried to gather some fresh ideas. Keep the robe and add some arms. And for the face, it sounded interesting to make these guys look like abominations, perhaps with some animalistic qualities. So through some trial and error, we landed on this, our new pit chanters. It's a very different direction, but raises a lot of new and interesting questions. We're still gonna add a few things to it, but let us know your thoughts on the new look. Now it was time to design a fresh way of tracking down your target. To start off, I wanted to add onto that investigator vibe when you're looking for your targets, so we added an interactable journal with lots of helpful info. Then I played some new games to get inspired, and definitely did, primarily from Return of the Obra Dinn, Phasmophobia, and its steals. So what if instead of sorting through items, you sort through people? You'd start the mission with info about the person you're looking for, and have to figure out which of the several dudes in the forest matches up. But how do we learn about these several dudes? It seemed like the most practical route was to interrogate them, but that didn't really sound scary, so instead you possess them, forcing them to give up the answers, then compare that info with what you're looking for and cross out names until you've got the perfect person. We whipped up a prototype and now let's playtest.
Wow. Wow. It's actually quite bad.
Okay, it didn't go that bad. The game was better, but just bland. Players almost immediately learned every question and answer, which made it boring quick. To make this interrogation mechanic work and be unique every time, we'd need an extremely complex dialogue tree of seemingly endless options. And while the mechanic truly wasn't bad, it wasn't strong enough to justify the workload. So we scrapped it, and I honestly felt at a low here because it seemed like we were destined to make a mediocre game. I spent a week banging my head against the wall until finally some inspiration struck. This time, the target's dead from the start, so we're just trying to find the body instead. The player gets a map of the forest, and they're told that the body they're looking for is in one of these 36 spaces. They just need to figure out which one. On the map are these random landmarks, and the player can perform a different ritual at each of them. These rituals will tell the player where the body is not. Because the 2D sections were negatively received before, let's have the player do all the work in 3D space. They'll set up things like candles, chalk, and turn off lights to get answers. As an example, in the cabin, the player will place down candles, outline them with chalk, and light them up. 2 candles will be blown out and signify a quadrant of the map where the body won't be found. Or there's also this ritual at the radio tower where after placing some chalk, you'll get a call listing off coordinates that can be safely crossed out. It's all kind of like a giant game of Battleship. You'll keep doing this until you've only got one space left. The new system was promising, but to tie it all together, we needed a persistent threat, something like Slenderman or the Xenomorph. We needed a nemesis. We decided that at the start of every mission, one nemesis would be selected at random. Each one is a monster mechanically different from the last, and these monsters take advantage of your expectations. They're unpredictable, and if you want any chance at surviving, you must learn how each one works. And with them in, finally, It felt like the game was coming together. A friend of mine playtested and said this was the best it's been so far. Thanks to the Nemesis, it was far more engaging than before, and the rituals felt much more organic than any previous style of investigation. It is absolutely not perfect or final. We need more playtesters, more monsters, and more variety, but for a prototype, the test went about as well as we could have hoped.
I've come to realize that random generation is not always needed. If we look at Lethal Company, the planets you explore never change their exteriors. But the interiors, where you spend a majority of your time, are always different. Now imagine if the planet's exteriors were also randomized. It would needlessly complicate things, and more than likely look worse than before. What I'm saying is, if you make something generate randomly, make sure it gives it more value, and not less. I bring this up because in previous versions, we had the terrain randomly generated. Each time a level was generated, a height map was generated to determine the heights of the vertices on the ground. Due to this, and my inexperience, the terrain was fairly flat and basic, and it showed in playtests. One of our testers said, if this forest is randomly generated, I can't tell. The terrain isn't necessarily bad, but we needed to do much better. Considering the fact that the player will be playing many levels throughout their playthrough, this meant we had to change something. In our newest versions, the terrain is sculpted and blendered. Thanks, Preston. Then imported into Godot, which has produced a much more interesting result. Comparing these shots, I think you would also agree. We will be using multiple terrains throughout the game, with each terrain having different layouts to keep the levels feeling fresh and giving a different experience each time. To help the levels not be visually boring, we also adjusted the visuals of the game. The first thing we changed was the lighting. Honestly, I couldn't list off everything we changed to the lighting, because Isaac and I just messed with values until we got a good result. The main changes were adjusting the ambient light and enabling SSAO, which stands for Screen Space Ambient Occlusion. It makes the light near the foliage and the trees and other objects darken towards the ground. To help sell that retro vibe, we also added a dithering effect to the camera. The main benefit of using dithering is the lighting and shadows are now more pixelated and fit in better with the vibe that we were trying to accomplish. With the use of handcrafted levels, we can now use an actual navigation mesh. Before, the enemies used raycast to detect if objects were in the way, which for the most part produced less than favorable results. I mean, technically, we could have also used a navigation mesh before, but now it is much easier to do so since the terrain is the same. I thought this would fix everything, and while it is much better, it also has its own problems. For some reason, converting the mesh to a collision can produce some funky results when combined with other objects in the scene. For example, if the player walks into either of these two spots near the bathrooms, the player becomes immobile and cannot move from the spot. Also, the new enemy AI really likes to spin. A lot. As you can see, I am not allowed to show you what the enemy looks like, so what you're seeing is recreation. Any attempt to find out what the current enemy looks like is punishable by death. Now, I will admit, this spinning seems to have been fixed. It's not in the most recent updates. But now, sometimes the AI just stands completely still for a few seconds. The spinning is funnier though, and if you combine the fact that previous iterations of AI used to do this, I see a connection. This new system has had its flaws, but I am much happier with this system compared to the previous one. It seems it is about that time.
It's been a while, and we have lots to talk about. But first, Too Close to Sun commented asking for a setup reveal, and I promised to show it if the comment reached 50 likes, and, well, yeah. So, here you go.
Alright guys, you asked for it. It's time for the setup reveal. In 3, 2. There it is. And nothing else. I'll probably zoom in. Except him. Yeah, I think I was robbed.
But alas, I wasn't robbed. I just moved back to my home state from Idaho, and likely by the time of the next devlog, I will be on my way to a new state where I will do a full setup reveal including my many trinkets and probably my cat too, despite how ugly he is. Now, onto the game itself. A big part on my end that I haven't discussed much is lowering the polygons of the models. Sounds exciting, huh? Well, actually, it's not so bad. To sum it up, Isaac also works on some of the modeling for the game, and to keep a consistent look, he'll send me models he's worked on, and I try to cut out vertices and polygons where I can, so it doesn't affect the quality and definition of the model, but still gives us that classic look we want. One of the biggest inspirations for my PS1 style is the Harry Potter games.
As soon as I heard, I rushed down from me hut to give you a big congratulations.
I know you'll catch the snitch first. I just know it. But in all seriousness, I am a big fan of the old Harry Potter games visuals, and I feel they capture the graphical period very well. Now, time to talk about the beauty of nature. After deciding to make the environment by hand, I was tasked with something quite new to me, level design. We wanted to sculpt terrain that was not only visually exciting, but would also lend itself to intense and memorable chases. So first, I came up with this. Yeah, nothing too special. A pretty bare-bones terrain with nothing but a few hills and a river with no spots of interest. So, back to the drawing board. After a couple of attempts, I came up with this! I call it Snake Ridge, with many more points of interest like a mysterious cave, a cliff overlooking a river, and lots of elevation variation. That was fun to say. This is only the first possible terrain though, as I have many more to make. Now that we have a world, it's time to make it more lush. We struggled for a while with how we wanted it to look. First, we tried a new tree, the aspen, which definitely helped, and is easily one of my favorite models I've made, but it wasn't enough. So, I made more details, like leaf piles, taller grass, bushes, flowers, leaves that fall, twigs that fall, more frequent grass, a hue shift to make the grass a richer green, until we finally came to this. This is easily the happiest I've been at the terrain. What was once a barren wasteland with occasional trees, now feels like a living, breathing forest. Moving on, we'll finish off with a quick fire round of some other cool stuff I made. Starting off, we have a journal, I made some candles, a little grasshopper, and a mysterious combination box that reveals
I wanted to spend this devlog talking not just about our accomplishments, but also our failures. A freaking moron once said, making games is easy. They're wrong and they're stupid! Making games is hard. Your initial ideas might not always pan out, and that's an important lesson. Don't be so attached to every idea you come up with. Some will work, some won't. Accepting that things might need to change will only make the game better in the end. The result for us? Motivation is at an all-time high. Because we whipped up these prototypes quickly, the setback is actually teeny tiny. We've rebooted almost every aspect of the game, but at its core, it's still everything we wanted from the beginning. True to the original vision, but better. From here, we'll be building upon everything we have, gathering more feedback, and filling out the game further and further. New monsters, items, rituals, etc. If you'd like to playtest and get a bunch of... I remember feeling so much relief when we started to get tests that actually had some upward momentum. Even if it wasn't perfect yet, just the fact that people were playing and starting to have anything really positive to say about the game was so relieving. What's kind of funny though is everything before the video we just watched is gone now. Except some of the monster designs. They got reused, but in essence, everything from that point in the game's development was completely redone. Even the characters that are around, which were always meant to be temporary, are completely different in the final game. They all became brand new characters. And when you go back and read some of the old dialogue, it's interesting to kind of see the crumbs there for what the story would become later once it really got fleshed out and became honestly the driving piece of the game, not just a background element. It's pretty weird. But because the game started to do well and we thought we were going to be done soon somehow, we decided to go ahead and make an announcement trailer and make a Steam page.
We're hungry for new members, and you're invited to join the Brotherhood. Leave behind your money, family, and dreams, and join our flesh as we follow the powerful, ever-growing Elijah. He calls us all to a higher purpose. Your role is the Seeker, and you will seek non-believers, those who are lost in the woods, those who could not digest Elijah's blessings. Using our special rituals, you can speak to the spirits of the forest. They'll help you find those who are lost. Watch for unnatural wildlife. It can be rather persistent, unpredictable, and starve. Bring the lost ones home. Elijah will be happy to receive
We just released a trailer and Steam page for a horror game, but while making them, we noticed a problem. There's a few other horror games already out there. We've already changed the gameplay to help it stand out, but not so much at the surface level. In short, the game needs to be more marketable. Whoa, calm down there. I know, you're probably thinking,
Peter, don't turn me into marketable plushies.
When I use the word marketable, I'm referring to something being the most appealing version of itself to reach the biggest audience. And when I say appealing, that does not automatically mean cute, it means interesting. You want to appeal to your desired audience, and you don't have to babyify it unless your audience is babies. And it can't only be appealing, it needs to fit your game. These are some creatures that I think are marketable, unique, and not cute. So how do we apply this to our game? Wait, what is our game? I guess here's a very quick recap in case you're new here. I'm Isaac.
I'm Gunner.
I'm Preston.
And our game is now officially titled Feed the Pit. You've been accepted into ECC, a society worshipping a horrifying pit in the ground named Elijah. You'll need to enter the nearby woods and avoid monsters while performing bizarre rituals in order to find a dead body and keep Elijah fed. Alright, how do we market this game? That question is actually really tough. If it were easy, every indie developer would be rich. But it is unbelievably important to answer. You need to get your game out there and build up lots of hype before launch. What part of Feed the Pit could we make more appealing and interesting? It's the pit. The pit is boring and too shallow. Literally. So ours is now bottomless. And he's been elevated to 45-degree wall status. A friend suggested I look into something called Mystery Flesh Pit National Park, and spoiler, it's cool. A visual that really struck a chord with me was the presence of man-made objects in such an organic environment. I tried to think of how to apply it, and now when Elijah shuts his mouth, you'll see this. How does it work? Why is it here? Wouldn't you like to know? Well, Elijah's looking a lot better, and we already revamped the pit chanter, so now let's market this thing. We need the Steam page, and there's a lot of crucial parts to get right, like good screenshots, a captivating hook, and most importantly, the capsule art. It's basically your game's thumbnail, and it's gonna show up all over Steam, so it's gotta pop. This is my first attempt. It's cool, but too dark and too detailed. I'm gonna put alongside other games.
Where'd he go?
So for attempt 2, red everywhere, silhouetted everything, and a visual of the pit being fed. Does it pop? Oh yeah, it pops. Finally, we made a trailer, which you should check out if you haven't already. A lot of work went into it. Music, rigs, animation, blah. To be honest, it could basically be its own video, so if it's something you'd really want to hear me talk about in the future, leave a comment letting me know and I'll do it. But this was it. I honestly am really proud of it. So we launched it, and lucky for us, the response was very positive. The numbers weren't mind-blowing, but they're a great start. So far, we've racked up 500 wish lists. And speaking of comments, let's read a few. This looks absolutely incredible. I can't wait to play it. Fantastic opinion. Oh, it's gonna be good. Well, I hope so. Reminds me of Feed Me Billy from Puppet Combo. Feed Me Billy, what's that? So, it's a 30-minute retro-styled horror game where you feed people to a giant living pit. I swear on Elijah that none of us had ever seen this game before. We were all watching this gameplay with our jaws just on the floor. I genuinely don't get how it happened. And it's not like we can just remove the pit either. It's not all bad. The games are completely different on the inside. The gameplay is entirely different. Ours has a big focus on monsters, and Feed the Pit is a much longer game. Still, really weird coincidence. We'll do what we can to help differentiate our game wherever possible, because we don't want to step on their toes. And go support Puppet Combo. Their games are genuinely amazing. And if you like Feed the Pit, go play Feed Me Billy as part of Scary Tales Volume 1. It'll be linked in the description. Well, I think it's time to switch topics. Why don't we hop into some actual game progress?
It's only been a month since our last devlog, but there has been a decent amount of changes. The first one I'd like to discuss is the spirit. Using the compass to activate any ritual, a spirit will spawn nearby and come to finish the ritual step. Now, this spirit is a gamble. If the spirit is friendly, then no worries. But if the spirit is hostile, you have to be alert. The hostile spirit will give you a command that you must follow. Or else. Next, let's quickly talk about the Nemesis. All the feedback we got on playtest was positive, but we still slightly reworked him as he was kinda basic. We also added a monsters entry to the journal that will have information about each monster you encounter. Information will be revealed as you play with that monster. And since we're on the topic of the Nemesis, I might as well talk about the bugs I encountered. Yeah, don't worry, we got more bugs to showcase. The first bug caused the Nemesis to float upwards. Even weeks after I fixed it, I still have no idea what caused this. Its velocity in all directions was 0, and I couldn't find anywhere in the code that would be teleporting him up.
What is it? What is it?
It was fixed the same day by just scrapping what I had and doing it from scratch again. I like to imagine that he was just the honored one. Gome. The second bug has actually been in the game for a while, but it kept eluding me. Although not currently in the game, we used to have rabbits and deer roam the forest, and for some reason, they would sometimes double in size randomly. Cut to the present, and I found out what caused it. Most entities in the game are sized down from their default value of 1, usually to 0.4. I assume that what I'm about to say is fixed in newer versions of Godot. Every object has a rotation property. I think you can guess what that does. Well, for some reason, changing the global version of it causes objects to reset their skill back to 1. I fixed this by making it change the local value instead of the global one. Let's see. Oh, the rituals are now randomized. They will appear at the same spots, but which structure is at the spot is completely random. A very nice touch and greatly added replayability, but it makes me have to rebake the nav mesh when the level loads. In the future, I should only rebake those specific sections, but currently it rebakes the entire nav mesh. How slow this is on other computers, I have no idea.
My PC!
Last thing I want to discuss is interiors. Currently interiors are like this, which is pretty good, but sometimes we want to get a bit more creative. Some buildings will have an interior separate from the structure and teleport the player to it. Not the best demonstration I could show, but I hope it gets the message across. That about wraps up my section. See ya.
Hey y'all, Preston here, and oh boy, it's been a month. And what did I spend that month doing? I built our hideout in Minecraft. Now wait, just hear me out. While we talked about how we wanted to lay out our base, we had trouble agreeing on how we wanted things to get laid out, and what we wanted the player to feel, and how they felt traversing the hub, without wasting too much time making a whole model. And then, I had an amazing idea. Minecraft. Then we got some windows surrounding, some hay bales, and some of the other pitch antlers.
I can't with this guy.
This is the barn. This is the entrance to the hideout, and where the player will park their truck. The start of every great journey. That barn. Like, Animal Farm. That's a great example. Here we have the main level, where the pit chanters live, reside, and another word for live. I'm too lazy to look it up. And this is Elijah's room, which has changed quite a bit since this initially was dropped, but this is a general idea of what you'll see. Now you have a general idea of what the hideout will look like, and hopefully, by the next devlog, we should have a near-finished product to show off. After your feedback, of course. So, after we got the concept of the hideout fleshed out, I had a couple of things on the priority list. First being one of the most important things for any game, no, concept in general, is a strong logo. A good logo should tell the consumer a few things. 1, what do you want them to feel? 2, is it clear what we're selling? And 3, is it recognizable in a crowd of logos? Now, how did we set out to achieve every mark? We liked the 3 colors and felt they contrasted well, and the logo had a recognizable shape. However, we missed the first mark being, it doesn't really show it's a horror game. Kind of just looks like a nature conservation game. I mean, I'd still play that, but still. However, I then came up with this. This one better shows off the horror, the pixel art shows off that it's a video game, and with this unique shape and, well, teeth and eyes, it stands out in a crowd. Now that that's all finished up, time to travel across the country. No, seriously, when this releases, I'm gonna be in, like, Georgia or Alabama or something. Here are a couple of pictures of my travel so far, assuming this devlog gets out on time. Well, I gotta skedaddle. Have a skedaddleful day. Bye.
But the Steam page released its Back to Our Cave so we can grind out the game. Expect some creepy new monsters by next month. Please consider wishlisting and sharing Feed the Pit with your... We started to kind of realize we were neglecting the monster side of this as a horror game. Mostly because we didn't want to do the AI. You know, we talked very briefly about that Nemesis system in the 4th devlog. And now we needed to actually, like, flesh that out and get that into something that makes sense. We recently made some pretty big changes to our horror game, and in the process, realized we need to take all the cool creatures we'd made so far and completely redo them. The original setup had a bunch of random monsters spawn all over the forest, but one day we had the colossal brain idea to run a playtest where instead of having multiple monsters, which often created clunky, disorganized chaos, there'd just be one far more complex monster. And all of a sudden, the game felt like... We tried to throw a couple of the side monsters back in, but it always made the game feel clunky and confusing again. This is how we decided that instead of facing off against multiple monsters every time you play, it'll always just be one random nemesis. So that means...
I'm sorry, little one.
Time to put the old monsters down and salvage whatever code we can to make new ones. We're gonna keep their models though. There'll still be a tree spider, there'll still be a worm. They just need to be more complex, persistent threats. And in the process, we've got some new monsters to make for our game too. Oh yeah, I should give a quick recap of what this game even is. I'm Isaac.
I'm Gunner.
I'm Preston.
And this is our horror game, Feed the Pit. You've been accepted into ECC, a society worshipping a horrifying pit in the ground named Elijah. You'll need to enter the nearby woods and avoid monsters while performing bizarre rituals in order to find a dead body and keep Elijah fed. Alright fellas, alright. Let's talk about... Our game's first nemesis looked like this. We called him the Shy Guy because he's shy. No, silly, not that Shy Guy, this Shy Guy. These nemesis exist to add a constant threat to the game. You are always being pursued no matter where you are or what you're doing. The Shy Guy was a good start, charging the player and running away when seen, but he was really just for testing. When people responded positively, it meant we needed to make him into a real bona fide nemesis. This look wasn't really the vibe we were going for, so we're gonna save it for a future monster. Instead, we're gonna spice up the Shy Guy by allowing it to disguise as a tree when spotted. So you'll turn around and... We figured the best way to handle this was for Preston to send me a design for a new tree and I'd turn it into a man. So he sent me this, and I made... After that, he sent me this instead, with a unique eye at its center. I set up these shape keys, which allow me to make edits to the model and then pull a slider back and forth to undo and redo the edits. His one trunk became 2 legs, and I tried to turn these arms into branches for a while, but then I realized that this is stupid, and just made new arms instead. With a few other quick edits, we have our first nemesis, the Spriggan. Let us know how you feel about his design in the comments. I went ahead and started making animations for him, and then everyone said they looked silly, so I made some new animations for him, and now you can really feel his presence all throughout the forest. So watch your back, because he could be anywhere. Now let's talk audio. Sound is incredibly important to good horror. Throughout development, we had one ambient track that played on loop with some occasional random sound effects thrown in. It got the job done, but was repetitive. I wanted to make a dynamic soundscape, moving and changing ambience to help the forest feel alive. I started by making unique background ambience for each of the different times of day by mixing and matching some scary samples I found. Next up was adding some variety. My idea was to make some short and subtle music that could be randomly layered on top of the background ambience. I thought about what instruments would be good, but then had the much better idea to download some Silent Hill sound fonts. Lastly, I wanted some random sound effects to psych the player out. So, Gunner whipped up a quick system where a random spot would be selected somewhere around the player, and the sound will play from there, with the intended goal being that players cannot tell fake sounds from real ones. All these components were carefully mixed together, and let's hear the result. I think it turned out pretty effective, but let me know what you think. Now it's on to the second nemesis. Let's see if Gunner can worm his way out of this one.
If you've been watching our devlogs for a while, you would know about the worm enemy. Ever since we restarted our horror game, we haven't really talked about him much, and it was because at the time his AI didn't really work well with our new nemesis system. Well, you'll be happy to hear that the worm is back and is now a working nemesis. I won't give away too much about how the worm works, but I will say that the worm is now able to go underground. Something that the worm never did before. Previously, all the worm did was follow the player at a slightly slower pace than the player's sprinting speed, but it is now much more complex than that. Now that the worm is done, let me export a version so Isaac and Preston can test. Recently, when exporting the game, it is flagged as a severe Trojan virus. Now, it was only flagged after I uploaded it and then downloaded it. Then, it would delete both the downloaded version and the original file. What's even weirder is that all of this is determined by the name of the file. The file isn't a virus. The only thing that dictates if it's a virus or not is the name. When I export the game as v16.2, severe virus block. Severe virus block. But when it's vtest2 parentheses 1, completely safe, harmless. This is the safest file on your X. My knowledge is very limited on this. I tried to do some research, but I didn't really come across anything that talked about this. So I would love to hear your input, dear viewer, if you know anything about this. Currently, I just have to assume, but from my testing, the only thing that decides if it's a virus or not is the name. And to end off my part, I was recently told that my demonstration of the new interior system was bad. And I mean, they're right, like it's really not done well. It's just a pitch black hallway. So here's a better hallway. If I'm being honest, we still have yet to use this, but the system has been improved since last time it has been shown. This interior is nothing special, but it should paint a better picture than before. Okay, I leave now, bye-bye.
Yippee-yi-yo, it's me, Preston. Want to hear about the Spriggan? Excellent. So when we were working on our first initial Nemesis idea, the Shy Guy, it was too basic. You'd look at them and they'd run away like a big old baby trying to avoid the IRS. This needs to be more fleshed out. And after playing Home Safety Hotline again, great game by the way, I was reminded of the game Spriggans. Spriggans, not only being a Skyrim nuisance, but also a legendary creature of Cornish mythology, a creature of mischief and nature, often near treasure or ruins. In Home Safety Hotline, the caller mentions how something is moving in the woods, and they can't really get a glimpse of it, which helped me come up with the initial idea of a Spriggan moving between the trees to try and catch up to the player. Although I still feel it's a cool idea, it didn't feel like it was the best use for our Spriggan idea. After more brainstorming, we thought, what if it was the tree? This led us to the mechanics that Isaac discussed earlier in the video. Unless you just skip the whole video to go to my part, in which case, I mean, I'm flattered, and that's hilarious. But you should go watch the rest. Once we had this idea, I made some rough concept art of him, coming up with this. There were parts we liked and disliked about the design, liking the eye, but disliking the ribcage. So while designing the tree he turns into, while Isaac would design the monster, we had to keep in mind how it would conceal its eye. I decided to go with this crown-like arrangement at the top, able to conceal the eye if it actually is a Spriggan. With this design at the top and a few tweaks, we finished up the design of what I call the crown tree. A tree only found on these haunted grounds, losing all its leaves early in the season, leaving only barren branches nearly all year. The other thing I've been working on between Spriggan work and just various other textures is the hideout. You know, the one you saw in the last video. Yeah, that one. Most of what I've worked on so far is the furniture in the hideout. Things like the refrigerator, couch, television, sink, the other cool things that are being shown on screen, as well as just blocking out the whole hideout in general. This is my first time modeling an interior, which gave me a couple issues, like having too skinny of walls, but nothing a couple of Google searches couldn't fix.
Alrighty, I've already recorded this video once, but I need to record it quicker. Really beautiful day out. I just moved to Florida. Got Lego Hogwarts right there. More Legos back there, another Hogwarts. We got my very prized Peach Pit album, signed. Being So Normal, amazing album, check it out. Then we got my computer set up, my chair, foldable arms, got it from Target. Magic cards in that Nintendo box. Magic cards all over. They're always all over. What are you looking at? Alright, well, go enjoy the rest of the video.
Well, it's that time. Merry Christmas to all, and go!
Because we hit our 1,000 wishlist goal, Frisco Bar also suggested that out of 1,000 wishlists, we each show off our favorite socks. So here are mine. They've got sharks and boats and are much better than what you're about to see. These are Preston's. He asked me to censor his foot, but I declined. I had to see it, now you do too. And Gunnar doesn't have any cool socks, so here's his favorite mug instead, which has a picture of his face on it. Real classy. That video came out right before Christmas, so we all kind of went on our break after that. A lot of artists will know that when you go on a break, you come back and look at your stuff with fresh eyes. So everything seems sort of either like better or worse than you thought it was, and in this case, it's not, things were good, they were good, they just weren't like fully there yet, you know? That's kind of what we tried to address going into the new year of 2025. We took some time off for Christmas break, and afterwards I came back super refreshed, ready to work on our game, only to find myself not fully in love with it. This feeling is scary because we already made big gameplay changes a few months back. Do we really need to do it all over again? Well, not exactly. See, the monsters are already good, and the current gameplay is passable, but despite all the major pieces being there, it still feels incomplete. The game loop has you searching for a lost corpse in a dense forest, so to weed out its location, you go to these 6 landmarks and perform preset rituals, with each ritual eliminating part of the map. It's fun at first, first and then it gets stale. Which rituals you decide to do and the order you do them in is arbitrary. You'll essentially get the same result no matter your choices, so there's almost no skill involved. Even if we made 20 different landmarks with 20 different rituals, you'd still experience all of them in just a few missions. No, the gameplay needed a new variable, a skill curve. We didn't need to redo it, we needed to evolve it. So how did we fix our game? Wait, what is our game? Recap time, newbies! I'm Isaac.
I'm Gunner.
I'm Preston.
And this is our horror game, Feed the Pit. You've been accepted into ECC, a society-worshipping horrifying pit in the ground named Elijah. You'll need to enter the nearby woods and avoid monsters while performing bizarre rituals in order to find a dead body and keep Elijah fed. So, we need a new variable and we need to evolve the rituals. For the variable, let's free the rituals from the landmarks and allow the player to perform them anywhere, but where you choose to perform them will affect the result. And instead of rituals with a bunch of complex pieces, you perform them using cards. What? This is all super confusing, Isaac. Have you lost your mind? Yes! Now hear me out. Before making any big gameplay changes, I spent time injecting my brain with some new media to get inspired. And then I got it. What if we made the grid more dense and allowed the player to ask questions about the body from wherever inside the map they wanted? Let's say I'm here and the corpse is here, but I don't know that, of course. So I ask, is your closest landmark the same as mine? And as we see, the answer is no, and therefore this area is eliminated. Overall, not very useful. But if I ask the same question over here, the answer is yes, and therefore all the stuff out here gets eliminated instead. But with 5 landmarks, that question is risky. So if you're not a stupid idiot, you'd want to make the map smaller before asking it. I'd start with a big question, like, are you within 3 spaces of me? No. I move and ask again, are you within 3 spaces of me? And this time, yes. And now that only this small area remains, asking, is your closest landmark the same as mine, is no longer risky, but very useful. There's many other questions you can ask, like, is your elevation the same as mine, or compared to me, are you closer to water? But none of these questions can be asked without the proper ingredients, like a witch. This is where the landmarks come in. At the cabin, you'll find dartboards and nooses, ingredients. Or at the strange stairs, you'll find shoes and candles, and other ingredients at other landmarks. You take these, and then you mix and match for your desired question. But then another problem came up. After just a couple missions, players would settle into an unmoving strategy. Same questions, same order every time. Something had to change, so ingredients were eradicated off the face of the earth in favor of cards. And a new character named the Card Master was added, waiting for you at each landmark. He'll look less stupid later. When you speak to him, he gives you 3 cards to pick between, each containing a unique question. And then you go wherever you want and light the card on fire to play it. Each landmark has its own unique deck with categorized questions, like the Big Area deck at the radio tower, which has questions best suited for eliminating large chunks of the map. This means the Big Area deck is smart to start with, but the draws are still random, so you'll be forced to ask different questions every game and must strategize around the hand you are dealt. Though at the moment there's not that many questions, so you can usually get the ones you want, but that will change! All these additions and evolutions we've made to the previous ritual system has solved so many issues all at once. Too many to talk about, so they're on screen now if you're curious. I know we've had to make a lot of big changes in recent months, and thank you all for being so supportive while we have. I'm optimistic we can now just focus on adding more content to the game and getting it finished. In other news, the game's story is really coming together, and I really want to talk about it, but I can't. However, I can show off the different pit chanters. Meet the leader, the medium, the cleaner, the scout, and the mechanic, who's using the old look for the pit chanters, since a lot of people said they miss it.
Oh boy. There's been a few changes. New map UI, new rituals, new journal entries, and don't even get me started on the cards. As annoying as it was to put in, I'm very proud of how the player interacts with cards. There are these sick animations in UI, and look at this black background when I inspect a card. You know how I did that? When inspecting a card, I show a translucent black mesh, and put the card you inspected above that so every other object is darkened, while the card is unaffected. Anyway, Isaac has already talked about most of this already, so let's get into some more new stuff. An issue about our game that slowly showed itself over time was that the levels were too long. Even when you knew exactly what to do and how to do it, the levels took forever to finish because of all the running back and forth between spots and landmarks. At first, I thought it was fine, but after talking with Isaac and Preston, we decided to improve upon it. So, we added portals. No, not those portals. These portals. If you're like me, you might be a little skeptical at the idea. but after testing we found it to actually shorten the length of levels while also feeling normal to use. Don't worry though, a portal must be activated by visiting the landmark it is associated with, so the player still needs to manually go to most, if not all, of the landmarks to finish the level. In case you didn't watch the previous video or simply forgot, we overhauled the red crawler, aka the worm, and similarly we overhauled the tree spider in this video. As much as I would like to yap away, I can't give you too much information, so this will be brief. The tree spider has kept its webs. Around the map, spider webs will spawn connected to trees, and as you play the level, the amount of webs will increase. The webs have been improved in a few ways, but just like before, stay away from them. And also, just like before, you do not want to walk underneath the spider. That's a big no-no. The tree spider is now accompanied by pinecone spiders, which are baby spiders that are about half your height, which sounds small, but trust me, it's bigger than you'd think. As much as I would like to yap about specific programming stuff I had to do for the new systems and the overhauled tree spider, I simply do not have the time to do that. And even if I did, I think only a handful would find it interesting. That's all I have to talk about. Let's move on to what Preston has to say.
Yeah, there we go. Alrighty. Yeah, that'll do it. Progress I've gotten. Wait a minute, what's that? Yup, we have cards now. When we were concepting new ideas for our ritual mechanic, I brought up an old idea of having cards in the game. The design of the cards themselves were mainly inspired by retro Magic the Gathering designs and Inscription's pixel art cards. You may have noticed these small images on the bottom of the cards. Well, that's to help differentiate the cards and what they do. For example, we have this card that shows if you're closer to the van or not, some flowing water to help you find out if you're closer to the water, and this eye to see eye humor, if you're in the right spot. In other news, the hideout is finished. Well, practically. I still need to get in a few details, like the bathroom, but this is a lot closer to what the final design in the game will look like. Check out these awesome cinematic angles. But now that modeling challenge was over, it was time for the next. Have you ever needed a vehicle that transports bodies in style, gets subpar gas mileage and a bit of a musty smell? Well, you're looking for the new ECC van. Get feeding, y'all. So yeah, this is the official van that Elijah himself chose, or probably someone else. He can't really move around much. But nonetheless, it's his van for Elijah's chosen circle. This was a heavy undertaking requiring a lot of experimentation and texture work. But I can happily say this is my favorite model I've worked on so far, and I can't wait for all those long drive story moments to take place. On a smaller and final note of things I've worked on, I've been working with a couple of indie devs to incorporate some references to their awesome projects. So I'd like to give a special thanks to Scotty from Devlog Games for letting me mount this prestigious goldfish from Fishing Vacation, and keep an eye out for the Third Shift, their upcoming Game Boy style horror game that may have a Curious Fox Sox reference in it. Ooh. Thanks as well to Night Signal Entertainment for the home safety hotline operating system to install on our computers. Go check out their newest project, Forbidden Solitaire, and wishlisted on Steam, as well as Feed the Pit. And a final thank you to Mason Unique Geese for a ticket to Indigo Park. Can't wait for Chapter 2. Links to all these devs' amazing projects will be linked in the description if you want to go check them out. Well, I was told to keep it around a tight 2 minutes and 30 seconds, so I better be going. See you later, my digital friends. Goodbye.
I'd say around this time, maybe even a few months earlier, is when the game truly became something brand new from how it started. If you go back and look at the early game versus the final game, it's night and day. And especially if you play them, it's like you're just playing two different games. Most majorly, the game stopped being a roguelike and we started switching to a linear mission system. And this wasn't a choice that we really felt the best about at the time. I think it was the right decision now, but it was scary because the game was going to lose its endlessness, it seemed. And this was because making an investigation mechanic endless is very hard. Investigation mechanics are just not easy to make replayable while having it actually be an investigation. The original game, with its very foggy and empty forest, did have sort of a unique charm to it. There was something very eerie about wandering around these impossible to navigate woods because they just had no defining features. But in the end, I think the way we went is far better than what we used to have. Our game is slowly inching closer to completion, which means we need to do a lot of playtesting. But the game can be a tiny little bit buggy sometimes here and there, and so began the harrowing process of giving what's currently in our game a bit of polish and adding more. But what even is this game? I'm Isaac.
I'm Gunner.
I'm Preston.
And this is our horror game, Feed the Pit. You're initiated into ECC, a society worshipping an eldritch pit in the ground named Elijah. You must use magical playing cards to talk to spirits while avoiding unpredictable monsters in order to find a dead body and keep Elijah fed. We've been scouring the game for things that either don't look good or don't work good. There's also been a lot of work on spoilery stuff like big story beats, and even work on a secret project, which we'll talk about in our next video. But one thing that definitely needed a lot of work, which we will talk about right now, is the spider. Last month we finished the pinecone spiders. They spawn up in the trees alongside their mama, the tree spider. But unlike the big lazy spider, these mini ones attack on sight, which meant I needed to make some cool animations. When they spot you, they'll climb down and enter this chase animation, with the hope being that you get distracted and walk somewhere you shouldn't. But not only do they chase you, they jump! The time spent midair is different with each leap, so I actually had to make 3 animations. The initial jump, a midair loop, and the landing, which transitions back into the chase animation. When they're all put together, you get this. One spider's easy to dodge, but any more? Now, the card system we had made was feeling pretty good, but the way you played cards was too complicated. You drop a card, then the severed hand, and then you'd have to activate your magic compass. It was weird. So we agreed on the much more elegant solution of lighting the card on fire, and that's it. But, problem! Preston can't make this burning animation because he's out of town and we need it now! So this responsibility falleth onto me. I made the first frame 1 and the last frame 16. Then made the frame that's halfway between the two, frame 8, by taking 16, deleting half the ash and adding a bit of bleed. I kept doing the strategy of going halfway in between 2 frames until at last I had a full, potentially temporary, but still pretty good looking burning animation.
I think it goes without saying that programming any enemy AI is hard, but the tree spider especially gave me some trouble. For instance, the navigation of the tree spider cannot be the same as some of the other ones because, obviously, this massive spider should not be able to cross bridges. So, it can't, but it was tedious to do. Honestly though, that part wasn't too terrible. For some reason, some smaller issues were taking up more time than that. For instance, the pinecone spider's head will track the player when it's on the tree. Tell me why this very simple function took me a few hours. It's not even a hard concept. I was just making it complicated. I don't know what it is about programming, but there are days where I can make a complex system in a relatively short time, while something insignificant can take me hours to think of a solution. The tree spider AI is in a fairly good spot right now, though it still needs adjustments. It's annoying, but it's necessary. And throughout the month, I've done a decent amount of adjustments and bug fixes and like taking out old info that we no longer use. Obviously, I did more throughout the month, but I can't talk about a good chunk of it, and we need this video out. So let me introduce.
When working on games, one of the most absolutely uber cool things you'll ever receive is fan art. And because there's a lot of secret stuff we can't talk about this month, I want to spend some time showing off the results of the art competition we held last month in our Discord. I was shocked by the talent and creativity of this community, so you guys are amazing.
One more up, yep. That's the first winner.
Go.
Oh.
Now, I really like how this is kind of a different interpretation, is being a little bit more freak of nature-esque.
Yeah, I like how almost stitched they look like near the mouth. It kind of reminds me of like a puppet almost. Think of what's that one guy's name from Nightmare Before Christmas? The boogeyman.
The boogeyman.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ooh.
Very good for a first pixel art. See, as the pixel artist, I'm gonna speak on this one.
I would not have thought this was like a first attempt at pixel art. It looks
this
great.
is really good.
The only note I would give is just a little less gradient. Other than that, phenomenal. For any new pixel artists, go check out Brandon James Greer. We'll link him.
Dang.
That is cool. It makes Elijah look so like it gives him so much detail that I haven't really seen in any other piece of art here.
This was second place.
Dang.
I really like the oil painting aesthetic of it.
Kind of looks like a tornado like shape. I like that a lot.
The lighting is phenomenal. I think the lighting was very, very well done. Gunner, hey, I'm talking.
I'm sorry. Our
Our winner
Yes.
Oh, the winner of this. Oh, this really sells the vibe that this is like just a demented cult.
I really like the background where it's mostly red, but then you have the white trees that go into the ground or like to the bottom of the photo, which looks like it's like roots coming from the cultist itself. I like that a lot.
Huge congratulations to Paraplegic Wheelchair. We decided that since these were all community voted, we would also go ahead and pick our own personal favorites that were not winners, sort of honorable mention. So Preston, you're first.
I like this one a lot.
This is super stylized.
I really love the interpretation of the antlers, and the lighting looked very good.
My personal favorite is the spider V-worm plus devs. I just like the concept of the worm and the spider fighting against each other, and we don't really talk about the spider too often, so I like seeing it drawn.
And I hit that.
What? You'd hit that?
Wow.
Which one?
What? No, I hit that pose.
The worm is kind of thick.
Worm's got a yeah.
My personal favorite that wasn't a winner would probably have to go to this one. I really like the energy of this image. Beautiful work. You got my personal pick of the day.
Thank you, Asta! Thank you for the wonderful art!
Why don't you do it while I'm here? Alright, go ahead.
Thank you, Asta! Thank you for the wonderful art!
Wait, one more time. I don't think the recording picked that up.
Yeah. Hey, Aster, just want to say thank you for the wonderful art.
Yeah.
You're my pick of choice.
That's much better.
So, what have I been working on lately? That's secret. No, really, with these devlogs, we don't really want to reveal everything we have to offer, but you'll definitely know it when you see it. I have gotten some progress on other non-secret aspects of the game. If you watch our streams, that's right, we stream development, go check it out. You'd know that I made another tree to spawn in the forest, a maple tree. As much as I love a good lush green forest, having different colored trees adds more visual interest to the environment as a whole, and I think provides a more memorable forest overall. Another thing I worked on was this barn. Boom! 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 Alright, that's enough. No, yes, 6! This is the upstairs of the hideout where the pitch hunters store their other vehicles used and keep themselves hidden. This was also modeled on stream, but yeah, so I actually had to redo everything I did on stream. That was fun. This is why it's good to save periodically while you work. Everybody's gotta learn the hard way, though. Well, I should go back to work on my secret things. My secret evil things. My evil never tell a soul secrets.
Okay, so around this time, we had been doing Feed the Pit for an entire year, and we're enjoying it, but we're kind of getting a little bit, like, fried, kind of wanted to do something a little different with our time creatively, so we thought it'd be nice to take, like, a little break by just doing, like, a 24-hour game we could kind of release for people, give them something to chew on to sort of just show our skill set, and, so that was the idea, but, you'll see that, well, it kind of turned into something else. We have 24 hours to make an entire horror game. That's work hours, 2 12-hour days, so we can eat, sleep, and not want to die and stuff. See, for the last year now, we've been working on a separate game called Feed the Pit, and while it's going well and the ending is rapidly approaching, it's taken longer than expected. So we thought, hey, let's make a small game in 24 hours. That'd be easy. It was not easy. You're about to experience this journey with us. You're a kid in the backseat of your parents' car on a long road trip. To pass the time, you play on your Game Kid, which is like a Game Boy DS hybrid, and in the game, you pass between levels and scavenge for supplies, but the supplies you collect appear in the real car. And so, when a monster begins attacking the back seat, you must use the items you've collected to defend yourself. I'm Isaac.
I'm Gunner.
I'm Preston.
And let's start. 3, 2, 1... Go!
Go!
Let's get to this.
First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get that repeating 3D level of just the road, the grass, the trees, and it'll just repeat over and over again.
Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier, and welcome back to making a video game in 24 hours.
To start this 24 challenge off, I'm going to be modeling a car for the game. I need a picture of a car. Okay, this is good. This is a good shape for it. If it would load.
We're starting at, good old 12:05 because I fell asleep setting my alarm again because I was up a little late last night.
Okay.
Smith, I really love you stepping on paper bags.
starting recording. That was really friendly of you.
For some of us, these were very frantic times, so we didn't always think to talk about what we were working on. But for me, I knew that with the entire game taking place in a car, that's where I had to start. I found this great reference model on Sketchfab from KTKR, and so I basically just took this van from our real game, Feed the Pit,
which you should totally wishlist,
and reshaped it to look like the Sketchfab car in a low poly style. Is the model perfect? No. Am I still proud of it? Yes. Do I only have 22 hours left? Yup, so I'm moving on.
Off the bat, I knew immediately that I needed 3 things: repeating level for the drive, game kit functionality, and monster AI. I started with the repeating level, and using these beautiful gray boxes, I made the repeating level. Then I made basic functionality for the game kit. The game kit can be toggled by hovering your mouse over an invisible bar, which yes, was inspired by Five Nights at Freddy's. At this time, the game kit has the player with basic movement and the ability to pick up items. Since I was focused on playability, the level currently was very bare bones. Oh, and let's not forget to plop that car model in there as well. Very nice.
So far, I got the player sprite fired off of Link from Link's Awakening on the Game Boy. I got a cool spinning flashlight animation, some chicken for the player to pick up because they're going to need to keep a hunger bar, and then I got a couple trees and some tiles. I've been trying to make the level, at least level 1.
The player is always in the backseat, and there's a monster that sort of wants to get in and shred them to little pieces. It can attack from the front, back, left, and right, so we decided that the controls would work best if, instead of a free-moving camera, you just press a key and whip your head in that direction. I made all the camera animations on my end, then found out we have no idea how to send camera animations from Blender to Godot, so instead I copied the animation onto a cube, sent Gunner the cube, and he put the animation from the cube onto the in-game camera.
What I have is a car model that Isaac sent. We got a little animation already in, and then we have a very basic system of the Game Boy in place. Luckily, the camera animations were actually really simple to put in. However, since each camera animation was a different file, I then had to figure out how to get each camera animation onto one animation player instead of like 20. Maybe not the wisest choice, but it probably would have been more tedious if all the animations were one file, especially since that would mean Isaac would have to send it over and over for new animations. I also continued to work on the game kit and got a level implemented, along with a new camera system that better fits this era of games. We also got our first item implemented into the game kit, the flashlight. Currently, when picked up, it does nothing though.
This is what I call a flow map. Basically, when I was doing level design, I decided to kind of draw the flow that the player would, go, and trying to make sure that the player never has spots where they need to really double back. Depending on how the rest of this 24-hour development goes, we might add a couple more items, so some of these might be switched out.
At this point, with 4 hours already gone, I decided to switch gears and start working on the game's monster. To save some time, I took this old monster we had, ripped off all its limbs. I thought it'd be creepy and save some time in animation if he simply had giant spikes at the end of each limb instead, so that's what I did. Then covered his whole body in a fleshy red. The head was a lot trickier, and I spent a little too much time messing around with different directions until finally setting on having some bulging eyes and a creepy skin mask all covering a hideous mouth.
Currently, we have a basically fully functioning Game Boy game. The final task left on my initial list was monster AI. It would be a good idea for me to get some of the AI done before Isaac sends over the model, as implementing the animations after I get the AI working sounds much more manageable than doing both at the same time. So I programmed the AI first. I put these cubes at each of the entry points, and one of these cubes would appear after some time. If the cube was left untended to, the cube would disappear and damage the entry point.
Hi.
Obviously, it looks weird without the monster model, but this is basically all I need for the AI. With this, I also threw in the rest of the camera animations.
It was time to work on texturing models. I utilized the van textures to form them into a blue car looking texture, and modeled the flashlight as you see here. Wow. I didn't have to do too much on the interior of the car because the game is quite dark, so that made things a lot easier. Yippee! Not only that, but I finished up the monster, reworking the model Isaac made, and making some textures to be used in the game to make it a lot more scary and visceral looking.
For the rest of the first day, I switched my focus to pumping out all the monster animations, cause there's a lot. He can approach from 4 different sides, so that needs an animation, and then he'll sit there for a while until you flash him with a light, at which point he retreats, that's another animation. But if you don't flash him, then he instead breaks through the window, which is another animation, then the door until he simply enters the car and kills you, another animation. Oh, and there's a jump scare! So with only a lot of fear about if any of this was possible, I started the grind, but it was actually going really smoothly and I didn't encounter a single problem. Now, I try to stay pretty unafraid when there's acclimate weather, but when my power goes out and I start getting random texts from friends several states away saying, hope you're safe down there, I mean, yeah, I start getting a bit squeamish. And so as 5 separate tornadoes begin to form in my county, yes, I hid in the bathroom of my unshielded apartment with my phone, a flashlight, and a bowl of Lucky Charms. And there I stayed for a couple hours with my apartment shaking a bit at one point, waiting for the storm to pass me over.
Oh, it has currently been about 10 humble hours. Mentally, I'm definitely plateauing. There's still a lot that needs to be done. I took the road and grass textures from Feed the Pit and threw them into the repeating level. The flashlight would now spawn in the car when picked up from the game and could be equipped and used at the windows. The monster was working, as he would appear and then get scared off when flashed. However, by this point, I didn't have any other animations, so the monster's model would only appear in the left window, but he could show up anywhere, which was pretty hilarious. Oh my goodness. I actually scared bro away. Oh my.
I think Gunner will ever recover from all
You have to shut up.
So this is the game kid, but I decided to go with kind of a purplish brownish. I might end up changing it later. I'm gonna see what Gunner and Isaac think too. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. I also finished the monster, which we're still debating on the name. For now, I'm calling it the Skinned. It looks really dorky like this, but in its actual animation, it should look pretty scary. Got about probably 45 minutes about left for the night, and yeah, Yahoo! That's what Mario says. I recently just finished up my 12 hours for the game. All in all, a pretty solid day.
Day 1 is over. I survived a tornado. I put in some extra hours, 14 today, and got most of the monster animations done, but there's a lot left to do still. I'm nervous, but I'm optimistic. I started day 2 with only 10 hours left on my clock to finish everything. I decided that in order to save time on the animations, I just flipped the model for the different sides of the car so I don't need to make as many variations. And with those taken care of, I needed to do sound effects because this is a horror game after all. Sound design is important. Usually for sounds, I just pull them from a sample library and then make some adjustments in FL Studio. But half of these sounds are coming out of this little console, so they need to sound like it. I tried a few effects, and the best ones seem to be taking a sample, putting this Destructor plugin on it, and then selecting Lo-Fi. A little tweak of these settings and sounds turn from this into this. Crunchy.
Alright, it's a new day. It's 12 p.m. currently, it's noon, and I'm going to finish off my last 12 hours of work. For day 2, I was jumping from task to task, but the first thing I did was implement the drive section in the game kit. This level is when the monster would attack in real life, and it would be used to detect when the monster attacks the car, so I would have to also sync it up with the actual in real life movements of the monster. I also added all 5 levels to the game kit, along with some more monster animations. Instead of only the model on the left, it was also now working for the right side, and the attack was working great. And surprisingly, it was only now that I added the hunger mechanic for the game kit. The code for it was pretty sloppy, as you could lose hunger while going from one section to another, but oh well, it worked. Let's move on.
Most of my day was spent finalizing models for the items and getting last details in. Nothing too crazy to highlight, just a lot of me making a soda can, which didn't even make it in the 24-hour version, and watching BoJack Horseman on the side while I worked, on top of playtesting versions gonna release. So, I'll show off what some of the items do. So here we have that alleged soda can. The player drinks this and is given 15 seconds of no monster time. That's right, the monster just leaves you alone for 15 seconds. This is great time to utilize to repair the windows and doors and place bear traps and, pray to Elijah. Speaking of barricades and bear traps, barricades are pretty self-explanatory and barricade any broken windows or missing doors, while bear traps prevent the monster from attacking you if there's no barricade or door or window.
Over the course of a few hours, I punched out nearly 100 sounds, including this song. But now, with only 5 hours left on my timer, I turned my attention to the game's story. We knew all the beats, but needed the specific dialogue. For 1 hour, I sat in utter silence, typing away, and I did it. The ending calls for a short cinematic, so I set up this little forest scene, placed down the game kit, and set up the screen to play a video. Done.
By this point, it dawned on me how much we still needed. Some features are gonna have to wait for the 1.1 version. The two right off the bat I knew I was not getting in was the soda item and the 2D monster chasing the player in the game kit levels. Anyway, I added some finishing touches to the game kit drive, and text boxes were also added to the game kit. The final animations were implemented, and the forward camera was changed to act differently from the other directions. Instead of leaning forward to flash the monster when he's on the front, you will instead be shown that the monster is in front of the car and you have to go forward and steer it away. We then collectively glazed the new opening animation of the game kit that Isaac sent.
What are you doing?
And the parents' dialogue was added, story was added, and the ending sequence was implemented. Thankfully, Thankfully, the ending sequence caused no issues and was relatively fast to put in. If you're wondering why I was worried, you can pause and read this block of text.
At the end of my day 2, I was mainly just fixing up any texture issues I noticed, which sadly would go unused in the 24-hour version. But it was fixing things like texture clarity, font adjustments to make it more legible, a white outline around the hunger bar to make it stand out more from the background, and other things I can't remember. Minor adjustments like this in game development can go a far way in keeping the player immersed, which for a lot of games is one of the most important things.
Day 2 is over. Had to cut it a bit short. We're just pushing what's left on our timer into a day 3. Preston and I did more of our time early, so Gunnar would have more left in the end, because everything we make he has to add in. Some content definitely is not gonna make it in. We're too ambitious. I'm definitely nervous. The end ahead of us, it was obvious that not everything was going to make it in the game. So the question was, how close could we get? My day 3 timer began with just 30 minutes left, and I had about 2 hours of work left, so I sorted by priority and moved with the speed of an American Lockhart SR-71 Blackbird. A couple other small things. Oh my lord, the bear trap is freaking huge! The most important piece missing on my end were the monster sounds. It always attacked in complete silence, so take this whale sound, distort, bip bap boom done. I animated all the bear traps, and I tried making a starving sound effect, but it was so horrible we didn't use it, and... Okay.
Alright, so we are on our final 2 hours and 10 minutes.
I finished my time, so I'll just send over everything I have now.
What was I gonna do? Yeah, take out this soda. I have an hour left, and I'll export a version and we'll both test.
Wait, what? Oh no, the glitch happened. I picked up another item and then set it down, and now my flashlight doesn't work. I remind myself, focus on the items. The game will be enhanced significantly when we get to add in the 2D monster later. Shame I can't.
Oh yeah, that didn't add a lot.
Yeah, Young Money, Nicki Minaj, Justin, show you off. Tonight I want to show you off. Hey.
This is what I needed.
What you got?
How much is left?
26 humble minutes, and I don't even know if the barricade it works. So,
barricade's not working.
We have 20 minutes.
The only big thing that I would consider having us add is the bear trap, but even that I don't feel like is a safe use of time.
There is no way we have time for the bear trap. If the barricade is giving me that much trouble for pre-placed spots, yeah, no. 10 minutes left.
Finish quick, got other bugs. Are we in the last 10 minutes right now?
We have 3.5 minutes.
What? Bro!
You have Gunnar. You locked this in 30
title screen was such a waste!
The death screen is
oh
in.
My
The
God.
death is in, it's fine.
I really wanted the wind sound. God, the title screen was such a waste!
Good?
Okay,
add in the WISD! Add in the control scheme! This I would have had us add anyways for Coop. Bro, it's over.
Please!
It's over!
What'd you name it? Okay.
Control... Bottom left!
Why bottom left? That's right!
It's fine. No, you're done! It's over! That's 24 hours! Quit programming! And just like that, our 24 hours were up. We did finish something, but definitely not everything. The game is still pretty rough, and with hindsight, it's clear we were too ambitious. But despite it all, I'm still proud of what we accomplished. It's just a shame that we have a pretty cool concept which will never get to be fully realized.
Are you sure?
Alright, we stuck to the 24 hours, yippee hooray, but who's to say we can't make a second full version of the game? And we've still got several months before a real game, Feed the Pit, comes out, so why not make something quick and easy for everyone to chew on? I present to you the Dead Seat, our 24-hour game made into a polished product. This game is a total upgrade, fuller story, creepier monster, enriched gameplay, the works. And you can play it right now for free on itch.io, linked in the description. The 24-hour version of the game is also there, but we highly recommend you play the full version first, because the 24-hour one is held together by duct tape. And in 2 weeks from today, the Dead Seat will launch on Steam for $2.99 with double the content, including achievements and a hard mode, which continues the game's story. It is cheaper than a medium fry from McDonald's, so please give it a wishlist and check it out on release. You buying it could change our lives. So when we finished making the 24-hour version of the Dead Seat, it was pretty good for 24 hours, but it was not complete. But the concept is really cool. I feel like we're wasting it by not doing it justice. So we decided to take like an extra month and do it properly. And that was a pretty big risk, but it ended up definitely being the right decision because I think the final game we got was really special. And not only that, but it also brought in a ton of eyes and attention for Feed the Pit. A bunch of YouTubers played the Dead Seed. And when they did, they said, I can't wait to play the next game. I will definitely be tuning in. And those people who said that did. When Feed the Pit came out, they made videos too, and that was awesome. There's really nothing more rewarding than seeing people play the game, and I think it provided us a creative boost we absolutely needed. Not only just getting to do something different, but going back on to Feed the Pit, it felt like, wow, we really have the ability to make something great here. If people like the Dead Seed this much, what else can we do? Why are games always late? None of us can ever seem to hit our intended release date. We're nearly a year and a half deep on our game that we thought could be made in 6 months. It's fine, just a year gone off my life. And it's not just us, this happens all the time. With other indie devs, GTA, Cyberpunk, Half-Life. From my experience, these delays are usually a result of either scope creep or the game just not being nearly as fun as it was on paper. Sometimes playtesting reveals that everything's not as perfect as you thought. That's why a game like Half-Life 2 has such an extensively different beta. Our game has a lot of stuff like that too. And I should probably tell you what this game even is before continuing. I'm Isaac.
I'm Gunner.
I'm Preston.
And this is our horror game, Feed the Pit. You're initiated into ECC, a society worshipping an eldritch pit in the ground named Elijah. You must use magical playing cards to talk to spirits while avoiding unpredictable monsters in order to find a dead body and keep Elijah fed. It kind of felt like we'd never actually finished this game. Until recently. A couple months back, we took a break to release a small game called The Dead Seed.
What the heck is that? Hey, hey, hey! What is that? What am I getting? What is that? What is that?
It reminded us how unbelievable it feels to complete a game and the process to do so. And so when arriving back on Feed the Pit, we decided to reduce scope a little so we could actually get this game out someday. Instead of 8 monsters, we're doing our 6 favorite. These have been a huge roadblock to finishing the game, and even after a year, we only have 2 good ones, with this tree spider guy being in a bit of a limbo. So I said, hey, why don't we focus hard and try to get a prototype for all of them by the end of August? And by some miracle, we actually did. There are varying degrees of done, some are great, and some need work, but either way, Gunner cooked. And with this huge milestone, an end is actually in sight. So yes, we will finish this game. And I don't want to spoil every monster, so for today, let's focus on just one. Creating monsters for horror games is hard. I usually ask myself, how do I make it scary and how do I make it stand out? Not just from other monsters in the genre, but also from others within its own game. Because if it's not adding something meaningful, then trash it, drown it, and kill it! Maybe it would be cool if this nemesis had to be babysat, but like in an actually fun and scary way. First, let's just start with the design. The direction we went with to really contrast the other monsters was an adorable little girl. You know, like Annabelle or something. To figure out the specifics, I need to gather some reference images for Preston, and I need to simultaneously figure out how she's gonna work. Preston immediately saw my references and got to concepting. Then pasted his concepts right on the board for me to leave notes, comments, and draw over. At last, we were aligned on the direction, and I came out with this model for her. From there, we filled out the rest of the info on her board in no time at all. What I do is I make a note for each of their different phases, like the frenzy phase, where the monster will go crazy and chase you like a giant, horrible gremlin. I then connect all these phases with a bunch of different arrows so it's easy to see how they transition from one another. That way, when it's time for Gunner to start programming, it's easy to read and doesn't make him kill me. So for the little girl, my initial idea was for her to follow you around and she'll wander off and become a monster if you don't find toys to entertain her. Then I decided that I didn't like that. Sounds kind of fetchy, and finding toys isn't really a scary task. But you know what is scary? Being chased. If you're being chased, anything can be scary, even tag. The entire match is a back and forth. Either she's coming to tag you, or you need to follow her song and tag her back. And if you decide not to play along, well, it's really quite not good. It's very scary, actually. I had a developer friend playtest, and while he's been pretty immune to the game's scares so far, this nemesis got him bad. And I won't lie, it was pretty awesome. However, across the board, I started to notice that some of our nemesis could be a bit hard to understand. Originally, we wanted players to be confused and have to use trial and error to learn how they work. But the only way people actually learned anything was was by dying, and dying means restarting the mission, and that 30-minute setback kinda made people not want to play. So that's really bad. In comparable games, the monsters tend to be more simplistic, and death is far less consequential. That is a much better environment for learning, an environment which we cannot replicate. So the direction switched from simple but no instruction monsters to complex monsters with obtuse instructions. It's different, but it's good. Every mission starts with some information or rules about the nemesis you'll face. They're vague but crucial bits of info that will help you survive, while also planting a seed of mystery as to what this monster is and what happens if you disobey. This worked really well, but people do still die, and dying still sucks. Here's the failsafe. If you die late in the mission, you'll be offered a death card. You can play this special card instantly upon respawn to kickstart your next attempt. Of course, Pierce players can choose to decline the death card if they so desire. Feed the Pit feels more complete by the day, except there's still only one map and it's kind of flat. So I've begun to design some brand new maps with lots of verticality, rocky terrain, and several secret landmarks to find. At the same time, I also added more lighting scenarios so the passage of time would feel more dynamic and noticeable. You've been seeing it during my whole section, so hopefully you thought it looked pretty rad. I wonder what Gunner's up to. I bet he's having a good time coding.
I've had my fair share of work these past months, with both nemesis and levels taking up the majority of my time. A large portion of this work also consisted of improving the code. I would like to mention that improving code is not always necessary. For example, there currently is no need for me to improve the drowning code or the portal code. Both are fairly simple features, work as intended, and I don't see me currently needing to add to their code. Now, if we were to talk about the player, the tools, the cards, the levels, or the nemesis, yeah, these are all important features to the game that better have very solid and very flexible code. Adding in a new card shouldn't take me a long time to do, and good code reduces that time greatly. When adding in the new levels, it was obvious that I needed to improve the code and systems for levels to make this process faster. This issue isn't always the programmer's fault, it's just that situations arise when adding more stuff. In the first level, every point is either grass or it's water. Then you go to one of the newer levels and you see stone instead of grass in certain spots. This adds a layer of complexity to the level because, obviously, foliage should not be able to spawn on stone, so new variables must be kept in order to prevent this, and these levels need a temporary collision which tracks what spots can have foliage. Then there's a general map of each level and making it compatible with both the 10x10 grid and the 15x15 grid, and spawning of animals and park rangers. Oh yeah, animals are back. Animals have been gone for a long time, ever since we switched from random to procedural generation.
Hello?
Right, the little girl. Honestly, not too many issues with adding her in. I mean, obviously there was issues here and there, but she was actually one of the quickest nemesis to implement. Regardless of this, I still needed to improve the code for nemesis. Don't worry, I'll keep this brief as to not overcomplicated. All you need to know is that before, each nemesis had mainly one script that held everything. The problem was that if I wanted to adjust all the nemesis, I had to adjust them individually, and all these scripts had a lot of repeating code. Now, as you can see here, this is how the scripts are structured now. Nemesis inherit a nemesis template script, which also inherits an entity template script that is also used for both animals and park rangers. Basically, now if I need to add or remove something from all nemesis, I can do so by changing the nemesis template script. Are you sleeping? Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up.
Wowie kazowie, it's been too long. So while we were undergoing various acts of development, I had a thought. We really need new cards. Ever since we added the cards, we've had close to the bare minimum for testing, which is fine for a while, but we came to the conclusion that it would be best to sprinkle them in throughout development, not all at once. Not only does this allow us ample time to test the cards, but also get a feel for the balance. So, it's time to get to work. Which I already did, and that's why I'm talking about it. The cards you're dealt are reliant on RNG, like most deck builders and roguelites. So, sometimes you'll get the best card in the game, and sometimes you'll need to adjust your strategy. This will help make every round feel different, and grant the player a great sense of satisfaction when they finally pull exactly what they needed. So, after all that, here are some of the cards I was able to come up with. Another small but significant change I want to make is upgrading the player's tech. Oh yeah, say goodbye pathetic compass. Introducing the latest, the greatest, GPS. We wanted the player to get more information without having to always open up the journal, like what space you're standing on and what your elevation is. So I whipped up a GPS model, handmade a bunch of compass positions, and BAM! We have technology. The last main thing I've been working on that I'd like to talk about is all the landmarks and structures. Things like a clock tower, a broken fountain, railing along the mountainside, and finalizing temporary models. I've been having an easier time with UVs after taking a day to watch tutorials and made some cool practice models. Also, go follow my Twitter, where I post this kind of stuff and teasers for things I'm working on. Well, I guess that's all. Until next time, my friends.
It's almost time to truly dive deep into the game's story and start implementation. I want players to laugh, to cry, and mostly to pee with fear. So I would love to hear, what sort of story are you... For the final months of 2025, we basically wanted to wrap up all the nemesis and just the gameplay in general, because we needed to do the story and we hadn't really started on it yet in a proper way. But starting on the story without the gameplay being complete means one might have to change for the other, and that gets kind of messy. It's sort of nice to be able to do them completely separate. So you do the gameplay, and then you make a story which can be made to interweave with the gameplay. So the last months, we essentially just play tested the hell out of the game and said, how can we iron out every single kink in the gameplay where it feels a little jarring or weird or confusing or jank or overly complicated, and simplify it down to its most fun version. We are in the process of wrapping up development on our horror game.
No, you're not.
What?
You always say that, and it's never
No,
done.
but it's real this time.
You're a liar.
I mean
You're
it,
a-
Mom.
you're
No,
fat.
it is
You're
real
fat.
this time. It's
You're
real.
disappointed in me. You're fired.
It's real. Anywho, that means it's time to get our last few monsters working nice and neat, and the same goes for the rest of the gameplay. Once we lock all that down, we can add in the full story and avoid needing to rewrite it over and over and over and over again. To start, let's get up to speed on what this game even is. I'm Isaac.
I'm Gunner.
I'm Preston.
And this is our horror game, Feed the Pit. You've joined the Church of ECC in worshipping the hungry, eldritch flesh pit Elijah. You must enter a monster-riddled forest and use magical question cards in order to find a target and keep Elijah fed. If we want to hit this goalpost, we need to work out all the major kinks. In testing, there were two main issues. First is that the gameplay is not intuitive. It's confusing, in one ear, out the other. We've got about 4 million passages of text, and at the end of it...
Great. I think I got it, but just in case, tell me the whole thing again. I wasn't listening.
Secondly, the game requires a lot of brain power to understand it all. You know, you gotta have a high IQ, and yet, it's not all that rewarding. For the time put in, there should be a lot more satisfaction for asking the right questions, getting the map smaller and smaller, avoiding a monster, and locating a person at the end of it. Luckily, I can fix it. But you know, we'll start talking about the new monster, because that's a whole lot simpler. Since starting on our horror game, we've received hundreds of monster ideas. Some are really interesting, and some are more unique. However, there is one suggestion we've received many times and have actually had plans since the beginning. A flesh thief, aka our shapeshifter. First is gathering reference images. I usually leave a few comments for us, and I like drawing on our boards to help separate and highlight certain things, plus it's fun. For now, let's just focus on the flesh thief's deer form. We already have a deer model, so let's just take it and... yeah, there we go. I then use a combination of note cards and arrows to build out a behavior tree. Gunnar looked at this, said,
yeah, looks good,
and started implementing. However, the gameplay stunk. It didn't really fulfill the fantasy of a shapeshifter. We need it blending in with other deer to drive the gameplay. Currently, the forest deer walk around, they stare at you, and if you get too close, they run away. The flesh thief should mimic this behavior, but punish the players that don't notice. That's no deer. So we made it behave like the other deer, but instead of running away from you, it runs at you, but only when you haven't spotted it. And to make this not just a generic weeping angel, we threw in some behavior quirks. It won't run into you, just close to you. But if you keep ignoring it, if you don't make distance, things turn deadly. And these changes are working out fine. Most playtesters have cited that this nemesis was their favorite and the scariest. Okay, let's talk gameplay. Number 1, you have to spend so much time in the boring journal, watching the map and counting squares to pinpoint where to play cards. It breaks immersion. So we're making the map handheld, and when you hold it with a card, you can see the exact area it's affecting. No more counting and no more guessing. Number 2, the cards have always been split into 4 decks. Large area deck, comparison deck, risk deck, this is confusing. So we just reorganize the cards based on how large of an area the questions cover. Now they're split into large, medium, and small questions. You'll usually start with large ones, and as the map gets smaller, so should your questions. Number 3, each of these decks is kept at a different landmark, such as large questions being kept at the radio tower. This was actually completely stupid, because nobody could ever remember which landmarks had which questions. So instead, the card master will now appear on your map in one spot, you go there, get a card, and he moves. Easy. Number 4, how do you reward the player for taking gambles and playing smart? You bribe them, eliminate more spaces and get paid more money for upgrades and tools, and do well to receive a good final grade. Number 5, the big one. Just over a year ago now, we changed it so that the person you're looking for is dead. And it's had to stay this way because if the target is alive, you could just run into them. And if you could just run into them, you don't need the cool card system we made. But testers pointed out that the way you find them now isn't very climactic or exciting. Luckily,
I have an idea!
you'll never accidentally run into the person if they're hiding from you. There's literally thousands of good hiding spots, so without the cards, it's not gonna happen. And when you do finally find them, they're not going down without a fight. They'll run, they'll shoot, they'll struggle. You are the monster now, and if you could just catch them in this final chase, your mission will be complete. Okay, Isaac, okay! But all those little changes you just made.
So you tell me, Answer Man, did all that even work just now?
Yes, it worked.
Our last 2 playtesters gave the gameplay an 8 out of 10 and a 9 out of 10. And we've already been addressing all the bits that kept those ratings from a full 10. It made me really happy and was a big relief to see results like these. And that's for the first time ever since this game began. From the looks of it, we'll be in the final stage of production come January. Okay, well, here's the programmer now.
Hello, yes, it's me. Time is limited, so let's not dawdle. In case you haven't noticed yet, the cards have visually changed quite a bit. Preston went through and improved all the textures on the cards, especially the Finder cards, as you can see from this before and after, with the newest version of it having a Minecraft portal-like effect. However, how they are presented to the player has also changed. The cards now float in front of the player, while before the cards were presented to you on this table. Along with visually looking much better, we can now get rid of this table and be more creative with how we spawn and move around the card master. The only reason it hasn't been removed yet is because we've been dealing with other things, like making our game more intuitive. Look, I know, Isaac has already talked about this enough, but there were a few more changes that we made that I have the privilege of telling you about. The first one being a proper tutorial. The first mission of the game did an okay job at teaching the player, but with playtesting we found that most players only understood like half of the card system, which obviously is pretty bad. So along with the first 2 missions being rewritten to be more intuitive, we added a tutorial. It starts automatically when beginning a new save and is a quick and simple way to introduce the cards to the player. And don't you worry, this tutorial is quick, simple, engaging, and it actually makes sense story-wise. The other change I will be talking about is the danger meter. So, when the player picked up a card, they were given danger. This danger the player was given then makes this meter tick up, the danger meter. Once the meter was full, the player was then given a random curse that could be anything from destroying a random portal to making park rangers aggressive to you. And after the curse was given, the meter was reset back to 0. At the time, this concept didn't seem that complicated, to me at least, but after having to explain it to you, yeah, I understand why it didn't go well. Almost every single playtester had no idea what curses or danger was. And because they didn't understand it, it also made them not care about it, which I can't really blame them for. It also doesn't help that the danger that was given to the player was also a little complicated. This section is already really long, so here's the equation that determined how much danger you got. If you want details, you can pause, but trust me when I say this needed to change. To wrap this up, danger was too confusing to the player, and as you can see, really hard to explain properly. So, danger was completely thrown out, and we just focused on the curses. Now, when a player takes a large question card, for example, large questions are now cursed. Same idea if you take a medium or a small question. You can tell if the cards are cursed if you see purple particles surrounding it. Taking a curse card will now give the player a random curse, and also uncurse every card, continuing this cycle. And from our testing, playtesters now understand that, oh, these cards are cursed, I should use different ones. And you know what that means? It means we succeeded, and I can now pass it on to
Another day, another dev, and now it's every day. Yippee! That's right, I was finally able to quit my restaurant job and start developing full-time, and a special thank you to all of you for supporting our work. Aww. I'm very grateful for all of you. And with that, I decided it was time to remake the Hideout again. With more experience and more time, I decided to remake the original Hideout, wanting to change the vibe from an unfinished basement and correcting my old poor geometry. Yippee for character development. And here it is, Hideout V2, which was then turned into V3. We wanted to make the Hideout feel more welcoming than V2, I went for a juxtaposition of contrasting styles, similar to the feeling of the cult, mixing dungeony walls with a good old tannish white carpet. After some testers' feedback though, we decided to lean more in one direction, deciding to go into the back rooms of churches, along with other changes and additions I had already been adding, like thicker walls and more furniture. I'll likely continue to add more details throughout the rest of the development, but this is easily the happiest I benefit. Now, one thing I've been wanting to change since they've been added is the trails. Our trails are stuck to the ground's tiling, making it really obviously jagged. So what's the solution? Torture Gunner.
So, we experimented and researched, mainly experimenting with switching our ground grass texture with dirt. We decided this wasn't the direction we wanted, so I hit the YouTube tutorials once more, and found what I've been wanting. Thank you, Dumbbird, for helping me implement it into Godot. So now, we got these nice, pretty trails. Now, how else can we enhance this game? Finally! I can work on the nighttime ambience, yes! I've been waiting to enhance our nighttime atmosphere for a year! I used Voices of the Void as my core reference point. I'm in love with that game's very beautiful but very ominous ambience, throwing up stars and a moon and the occasional set of watching eyes in the distance. Isaac went all out on the sound effects as well, everything from cicadas making cicada noises to pine trees moving in the wind, and even more sounds to come in the future. Well, the app session is over, and Santa's around the corner. I'll see you guys next year. Ho ho ho! Okay, bye-bye now.
We have been so busy enhancing every interaction of this game, but it's been worth it. Our tentative plan is to lock in the card play before the year ends, and then hopefully bring this game to completion early next year. If we miss it, we're freezing ourselves in carbonate and rolling off a cliff, or making Dead Sea 2. We hit our goal of 9,000 Feed the Pit wishlist, so we're giving away another. We did essentially wrap up the gameplay by the end of the year. We went into 2026 with the idea that it's story time now. So I wrote up the entire story, and I didn't want it to just be in the background, because after spending 2 years on this game, we kind of came to the conclusion that it probably wouldn't succeed unless it had both great gameplay and a great story. I think when you look at Feed the Pit, it sort of seems like a game which would not have a very big story, but I'm okay with that under-promising because it gives us the opportunity to try and over-deliver. So I wanted to create a story all about this really strange cult, how it came to form, and all these complex and very alive feeling members inside with all of their own thoughts about how the cult is operating and the type of things they do here. Do they agree with it? Do they not? Do they believe it? Do they not? It gave the opportunity to create some really interesting people, but it came at a cost because creating this story to its fullest extent was not going to just be a 1 month process. Our horror game is nearing release, so it's time to give it an awesome story. When making a game, it's very tempting to start with story, but I've always said, make the game fun first. No advice is universal, but you just gotta be careful because once you have a fleshed out story, it tends to restrict a lot of what you can do with gameplay. But now the time has come for this dumb kid to practice what he's preached and make a story for our game, which let me brief you on. I'm Isaac.
I'm Gunner.
I'm Preston.
And this is our horror game, Feed the Pit. You've joined the Church of ECC in worshipping the hungry, eldritch flesh pit Elijah. You must enter a monster-riddled forest and use magical question cards in order to find a person and keep Elijah fed. And stay tuned, because we are talking about Feed the Pit's release plans today. But story first. In a game about a cult, these other cultists need to be pretty interesting. It's a lot easier said than done, and there's no one way to make a good character. But I got here a couple exercises that when I was getting stuck, got me through, and made the characters feel more alive too. The first exercise is to create 3 beliefs the character claims to uphold. The others know what's best for me. Every single person has a good heart. Things always turn out okay in the end. For these beliefs, I usually make one about how they view themselves, one about how they view other people, and one about how they view the world. And now you can create great stories by challenging this core set of beliefs. A character who believes that others know what's best for them should be given advice, which throughout the story, they'll learn is extremely harmful. And these dilemmas force them to make decisions which reveal their true character. On to the other exercise. How does each character feel about each other? I made a new board on Milanote with this crazy spider web, which shows the relationships between every character, and it has improved their dialogue tremendously. All you gotta do is drag in some images, connect them with arrows, and attach notes that explain their views. Let's read how the Acolyte views this guy, the Protector. Protector is super cool and mysterious. I like baking him stuff whenever he's staked out. I want to treat him nice because I believe that under that harsh exterior is a big heart. Okay, now how does Protector view Acolyte?
Acolyte is a very sweet girl. She always treats me well, but I keep it limited. Her world must be kept separate from the violent realities of all that is done here.
Now it's becoming clear. Protector is a paranoid, grisly, hard on the outside, soft on the inside kind of guy. Meanwhile, Acolyte is sweet, positive, and naive with a lack of faith in herself. And once you've done this between every character, including the player, writing dialogue and inventing situations becomes infinitely easier. I also highly recommend filling out this character sheet from local scriptman. So after all this work, let's introduce each of the cultists with a question. Who's your favorite member of the church? Yeah, they're kind of weirdos. All right, now let's go on to the full story! First drafts were, predictable. So I decided to take the story in a much less expected direction, which I can't talk about, and that helped a lot, but then we had like 10 different mysteries to tie up all in the ending. This is where I remembered one of my favorite writing tricks. Don't hold all your cards till the end. At the end of Deltarune Chapter 3, something shows up that everyone assumed was chapters away, and the result is,
holy cannoli, if this is happening in Chapter 3, what the heck will happen in the next 4 chapters?
A great exercise is to take an event you've been saving for the end and move it to the middle. Then ask yourself, did this just make the second half more exciting, interesting, unique? If the answer is yes, move it! Spread these across the story and you'll find the constant evolutions keep it feeling insanely fresh and unpredictable. Eventually, I had a story in front of me that I loved, and I read it to the boys, and they loved it, but getting it in game, not so easy. To just be honest, we've been working on this game for 2 years. We don't have the money to keep going. And everyone who's supported us deserves to play it already. But at the same time, after all this work, we're not going to compromise on a worse story. So we had an idea. Within 2 months, we will release Feed the Pit Act 1. Here's how it works. You'll be able to buy Feed the Pit for $10, and the second and third acts will release as free updates. Not in a year or years, but just a few months after each previous act. The whole game should be out before 2026 ends. Each act has 2 to 4 hours of content and a few nemesis, plus a giant chunk of the story to chew on. I'm honestly really excited to see all the theories between acts. Nobody's gotten to meet Elijah yet, but once you do, you're going to have a very different perception of this story. I hope you're as excited as we are to Feed the Pit. Okay, let's go see what Gunner's been up to.
What have I been up to? Quite a lot, obviously, so let's go over some of them. The cultists have had a lot of work done to them to make them feel more alive, turning their head towards the player, opening and closing their mouth when they talk, along with the ability to give them different expressions. I've also had to use animation trees for them so I could properly blend animations together, which as you can see can look pretty confusing. I don't know why Godot does this, but you can blend animations without an animation tree, but it only blends as linear. With an animation tree, however, I can use curves, which blends the animations much smoother. Over development, levels have been improved quite a bit. Much of the information present on the level is now determined by images in the files. Such images need information that has been harder to get because of how maps have been being made. For instance, the trail is baked into the map's material, which looks great, it looks much better, but I need to know if a spot on the level is on the trail or not when generating objects. In a random stroke of genius, I had an idea. Let's just throw a camera positioned slightly above the ground to look at the ground, take the middle pixel of the screen, record it to an image, and repeat this process for every single map position.
Wouldn't you know it? It works. Look at that. Bro, it even got like the shadows.
And holy crap, I can't believe it worked on the first try. I'm not sure if I should be proud of this solution, but we all thought it was too funny not to mention. The image it produces has information that is extremely useful for level creation, along with the added bonus of it looks pretty cool. A rather silly issue we've had for quite a while was with the foliage, more specifically the render distance. Considering the art style the game has, it should not be this limited. I'll be honest, I have rewritten this segment like 5 times to try and explain what I did to fix the render distance, but it's way too long. So here's the new render distance. Looks much better.
The gift shop from our early devlogs is back. Oh yeah! I whipped up a concept for the new shop in Minecraft first before modeling it in the game. And, of course, the beloved shopkeep makes a return. Now what new items will he sell? While designing the items, we kept a variety of uses in mind. Some should help you find the target, some should help you traverse the map, and some should just help you stay alive. So, here's what we came up with. The gambler's die and riskier roll act like a finder card, choosing 1 to 6 or 1 to 12 random spaces to check for the target. Great for late in the game. The sage prevents the player from getting a curse, but then gets used up. Icarus's feather prevents fall damage completely, but has a limited durability. Great for daring jumps. And, finally, the floaty allows the player to, well, float in the water. You remember this broccoli head? Yeah, the Spriggan. We've never been fully happy with his design. In a vacuum, it was fine, but in a horror game, it wasn't nearly scary enough visually. So, as a show of my progress as a 3D modeler, I tasked myself with making the Spriggan scary. The big improvements I wanted to make was to give them a scarier build, make the branches look more like horns, and define a face so it isn't just an eye. And so, here's the result. I find the character's silhouette much better, and it definitely is a lot creepier looking than old Shrubhead over there. Alright, time to talk cards. The old design looks something like this. Question you ask, how it plays on the map grid, and a little bit of art to connect it to the question and shape. Now, these were plenty passable, and very easy to quickly whip up. However, a friend of ours felt underwhelmed by the design of these what are supposed to be mystical cards, and I can't say they were wrong. Okay, I said, I'll just whip up these new designs in like a week. How hard can it be? The answer was very. But the improvements? Massive. I tried a couple of styles, settling on this one, making the art the central focus. The hardest part of this new direction was coming up with ideas for the art in some of these. How do I represent a Z block from Tetris, 2 spaces, a pill shape, all in a style reminiscent of a tarot card? I ended up either recontextualizing the designs, or scrapping ones that felt really out of place. And with that, I'm off into the sunset to lock in on these final weeks. I'll see you all at release. Goodbye!
This will probably be our last devlog before Act 1 releases, and that is crazy and terrifying. For the past 2 years, we've been walking you through our entire game dev journey. The good, the bad, and the, I don't know, some third word. But now it's time to shut our mouths and the game speak for itself.
Feed the pit. Feed the pit. Feed the pit. Feed the pit.
We're here at the end now, and it's so weird. Watching back through all these devlogs and just looking at the early game, it really became something totally different, and I wouldn't change that. I think that the cast of characters it started with were really not worth talking about, but the cast we have now, I'm in love with every single one of them, and the fan base has fallen in love with each of them. I see fans of the biggest and smallest characters, and it's amazing. It's humbling to work on a project this big and see it go out there and see people try it and have interesting reactions when you're playtesting too. Nothing will humble you faster, and watching them have no idea what's going on. But through seeing that, and if you address the problems, even when it's hard, you will come out the other end with something that is beyond what you thought you could create. The game literally started out as a roguelite, almost even as a quota game like Lethal Company, where you go into the forest and get the body and come back, and it's random every time, and you keep doing that infinitely forever with a bit of story. The funny thing is, some YouTubers who have played Feed the Pit have even said, like, man, I could totally see like an endless mode of this. I just think about how we did try that, you know, for a long time. Now we have our challenge mode, which is a lot like an endless mode, in my mind, with more replayability even. But it's just strange, and I'm really proud of the final product now. So let's kind of go over everything one last time and see how it all ended. 2 years ago, I left my role as the director of Poppy Playtime and partnered up with 2 high school friends to make a horror game in Godot in only 4 short months. Yikes. The concept started as a hybrid between Papers, Please and Solo Lethal Company. You're a ranger trying to find people who've gone missing in a cryptid-filled forest. Then we thought, you know what's even more fun than rescuing people? Killing them for a cult worshipping a starving eldritch pit in the ground named Elijah that's waiting to feed on the souls of the damned. And now that game is finally out on Steam and people are playing it. The reception is amazing, but the game is kinda different. Now it's closer to a mishmash of Inscription, It Steals, and Battleship. Yes, Battleship. And it's only the first act. Second act doesn't release for a few months, but don't worry, each act is several hours, and acts 2 and 3 are completely free updates. Plus we got a challenge mode releasing this month. But how are we a year and a half late and still making more? Well, let's have a look at the game's harrowing journey through development hell. I'm Isaac.
I'm Gunnar.
I'm Preston.
And welcome to the story of how we made our horror game, Feed the Pit.
We have quite a lot to go over, 2 years worth, but I can assure you that the journey was very entertaining. Let us start at the beginning. Going into Feed the Pit's development, we were all pretty darn excited, I can't lie. This would be the first time both Preston and I had made a 3D game, and all 3 of us were more than ready to get to cooking. I will warn you that the next few minutes will be all over the place, so if you're confused, don't worry. Most of what I mentioned did not make it into the final game, but I think it should still be mentioned. Alright. Having said all of that, let's jump to February 15th, 2024, and this marks the day that the first playable version of Feed the Pit was made. It was some grass, some trees, a movable player, and that's it actually. Cut all the way to April 24th, 2024, and we had a hideout, kinda, a phone for displaying the target's information, the drive to and from the forest, procedural generation of the forest, along with the random items spawning around the map, which would eventually allow the player to identify which items were the targets and track them down. After the course of 5 days, we then added in the first real version of the hideout, along with the cultists. Looking at these designs now, I'm just thankful we went in the direction that we did, though I gotta admit, these cultists have a unique charm to them. They just look so squishy. Fast forward to May 9th, and the target can be eliminated and picked up to take back to the truck. Another jump to June 14th, and a lot has happened. The gift shop was added to the game. Originally, it was inside of the forest, and you could buy passive upgrades as opposed to the tools that we know of today. Upgrades like player speed and backpack capacity. The worm was implemented and actively chased the player once midnight struck to push the player to get out of the forest. And then shortly after that, basic dialogue was added to the cultists in the hideout. Cut to July 29th, and a rough game loop was completed. The player could go into the forest, hunt the target, feed the pit, and repeat, all with a functional worm enemy, tree spider, and park ranger. Gift shop now actually sold items that the player could use throughout the level, like the espresso. There was also a roadkill enemy, but they were eventually just removed completely. It is also worth mentioning that the tattoo, your left hand, which is how the player progressed to find the target, went through a bunch of changes during this time. At first, the tattoo would just pulse depending on if you're moving close to it, which was annoying to use. Then we had it so you would use the tattoo to literally point you in the direction along with footsteps to help. That still wasn't enough, so it was then visually changed to a tome. Problem solved? Maybe? Find out in like 50 seconds. Finally, after roughly 6 months of development by this point, we had some serious playtesting to check if our game was fun. We added rabbits, deers, and a new enemy, and we sent it their way.
Oh wow, our game is finally going to be tested. We'll finally hear how awesome our game is with no problem. One of the most important parts of game development is thorough testing. It helps you learn how to make your game understandable and, you know, actually verify it's fun. And for our first test, well... rounds went far too fast. Sometimes you choose the most correct answer, but it was still wrong. The horror wasn't very scary, and most of all, it wasn't fun. The testers cited that the main reason was all the time they had to spend in the backpack menu and how confusing the investigation system was. It took them out of the horror far too much. All that work we did for the first few months? Well, not wasted. We did learn a lot and now have a new direction. However, the short-to-make timeline just got longer. How much longer? Well... Alright, back to the drawing board. A system where you interrogate people in the woods to find out who you're hunting through a series of branching questions. How did that go? To make this idea work, we'd have to write so much so the player couldn't just memorize questions and what their answers mean. And, again, it wasn't fun enough. So, I thought of an old idea. I had one where the player is given a map with a grid, and they need to narrow it down. Now, how do we narrow down the map? Rituals. That's perfect. It fits the theme, it's cool, we put it on our first trailer for the game. Might take some time to come up with a bunch, but... Oh, 1 second, it's a tester. 1 second. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah. Alright. They said it's an overall improvement, but it feels clunky and overcomplicated.
I've got an idea!
Cards. Explains information in a compact way so the player doesn't need to keep referencing a little mini guide. And they can be used anywhere. And they look cool. All you need to do is choose one from this mysterious figure, the Card Master, and burn it where you see most fit to eliminate the spaces you want. Most importantly though, it tested well! Another thing that went through a good many phases is the hideout. The original being, well, it was there. Then came my first attempt. With now a few months of modeling experience under my belt, I whipped up a concept in Minecraft, then translated it into my first real hideout attempt, giving it a much more dungeon look as well as very missized furniture. Oops. Attempt 2! Now much closer to the final design, leaning more into feeling like the back rooms of an old small town church. From here, it was mostly just fine-tuning and adjusting rooms and furniture. All these changes have been great, but now...
He just left.
We have some other business to attend to.
So by now, that 4-month timeline was gone with the wind. But our game started to get some decent attention, so we decided that if we're fixing the game, let's fix the whole game. And the next step of that is our stinky creatures. They didn't synergize well when attacking at the same time, and after playing its steals, the idea came about to assign each mission a singular, relentless monster. A nemesis, basically. I'll try and avoid spoilers. Our test concept was this, I don't really know what this is. It'll always stalk you and goes away when you look at it, but attacks when you stare at it. And when we tested it, our tester said, "Ah!" So we were like, oh, okay, good. We had to spice it up though, because the test just said it was kind of one-trick pony. There was a separate idea for a monster that disguises as a tree if spotted, so we combined these concepts, Preston modeled it, and we called it the Spriggan. Cool. I think a lot of making good monsters comes down to creating really good moments and then replicating that moment in as many ways as you can. And that is apparently really hard in an open level since you've got no idea where the player is looking or going. So if you're gonna do an open level monster, just get like at least 700 testers so you can be sure your moment happens for everyone. Another cool moment we thought up was having a cute character that turns not so cute. Like this little girl who, if you don't play tag with, will turn not little. Her scary meter was kind of poo-poo though. New animations went a long way, but we also wanted something freaky under her mask. Preston offered a few options like a skull face or this thing from Junji Ito, but ultimately decided on a spoiler Now, we had the old creature designs we didn't want to waste, so this is where we learned to recycle. There's no reason to toss good work in the garbage just because the gameplay was iffy. This design was reused as the base form of a shape-shifting nemesis. Most of the time it's disguised, but when it's not, you get this. The tree spider just sits around the forest now, waiting for prey to walk beneath it. Worm got banned till Act 2. The park ranger changed from an active enemy to a forest NPC with a rideable head. What? And lastly, Roadkill was decapitated and combined with our cultists to give them a design that's a lot more unique and beloved by every furry I've met. Oh yeah, and apparently it's really hard to see a pit on the floor, so we tilted it.
By now, it's been around a year since Feed the Pit's development started, and we as a team really wanted to get something out. We wanted to put out something, anything, for our fans to play and enjoy. We decided on a 24-hour project, originally called the Backseat Game. And then this happened.
Ah! What? Ah! Bro! He's skedaddling his way down the street! Oh!
Harold, sometimes I wonder if you even care about her at all, or me.
Stop!
We released the Dead Seat, and it did amazing. Many YouTubers played it, some of which have really big followings, and our community expanded greatly over a short period of time. We made a video documenting the process and how we did it, and we also continued updates for about a month or so until we got back to working on Feed the Pit. The praise we received for the Dead Seat was enormous, and we as a team cannot thank you all enough. Seriously. Aww. Coming back to Feed the Pit, we were on our feet running towards progress. We needed to finalize that game loop. The game became a lot more linear, as doing so would enhance both the story and the gameplay of the game. Test after test after test, and we were ironing out the game. Portals alone were changed around 3 to 4 times before we got a system that we liked. And for a while, the target was already dead, and all you did was take them up. Testers found that boring and anticlimactic, so we made them alive. Initially, you didn't chase the target, but after more testing, we added it and found it to improve the sequence dramatically. We've talked about this constantly in the previous devlogs, but in the past, the cards and curses were adjusted numerous times, and it was super tedious, but it made the gameplay much better. For example, the decks of the cards used to be tied to the structures, so you would get large cards only at the radio tower. Not to mention that there wasn't a fancy realm for the card master yet, it was just a table for the longest time. This period of development was absolutely needed for Feed the Pit, and for any devs watching, I cannot stress enough how important playtesters are. Isaac has made this point in the past, but trust us, it will help you greatly.
Over the course of development, I had to learn a lot of new art styles, mainly low poly modeling and texturing. After the Dead Seat, I spent time redesigning many outdated models that were made by baby's first time in Blender. The one I would say needed the most visual tune-up was the trees. The bark texture looked nothing like bark, and so I decided to redesign it from the ground up, and making it a deeper brown really helped solve the issue. While I spent the time getting our visuals closer to final, I went and made many of the textures look a lot more polished. I took a step back from making everything look completely handmade, and instead broke down an image to add more texture, and then spent some time making adjustments and also adding my own flair to it. This not only saved time, but also just made the game as a whole look much better, while still looking distinct from other games. I feel I did a good job as an artist helping our game look visually distinct from many others, trying to capture the low poly horror aesthetic, but still selling the feeling. Now what should I do with my now more polished modeling and texturing skills?
Design words.
Having procedural generation was not cutting it, so Isaac would whip up a rough layout of a level, and I would polish the hell out of it, setting up trails, landmarks, random little unmarked structures, little secrets, fixing weird vertices and collisions, the whole shebang. We found hand-making these maps made the overall user experience much better. It made our terrain look more exciting, improved monster encounters, and also just fit better with our gameplay. We now don't have to rely on the player getting lucky to stumble across interesting structures or terrain when we can just curate it. The one downside to this, however, is it does end up hurting replayability. But we plan to subsidize that soon with a challenge mode, similar to the Dead Seats. Now what should we do about the lighting? With all these new visuals, we of course need some... Oh, hey Isaac. How'd you do that?
I watched a tutorial.
Well then, now for the cards. You can go watch our last devlog to see me go more in depth on those. But to keep it short, here is a chart, and I believe this explains it pretty well.
2025 ended with us all considering the gameplay locked. There were lots of stupid little baby features to shove in there, but ultimately only one thing was truly missing.
story.
Despite me saving it till the end, I think my primary skill is storytelling, so I had to lock in. There's always been a basic plot and some test dialogue, but to kick off 2026, I was committed to creating a story that goes beyond what anyone's expected. Avoiding spoilers, I really wanted a split narrative where you choose whether to stand with the cult or against it, but apparently there was way too much going on in this game for people to at all understand the choice they're making, so I decided that Act 1 would feature a single path, giving players time to suss everything out, but Acts 2 and 3 will actually let you choose where you stand. Stories are driven by characters, so I need a really good cast. Best way I found to do that was making a super rough outline and then making characters out of the archetypes the story required. Like the charming preacher, the innocent church girl, the mystical tutorial guy, and these were all great except for this guy. This tutorial dude sucked.
First you have to take a card and then look at the map and make sure the choice is the right size.
Oh my gosh, this guy is not a character, he has nothing interesting to say. I figured that the best dialogue usually comes from two characters having a back and forth, so I solved this very annoying problem by giving him a bird pet who rhymes, and now he might be my favorite character in the game. With the story coming together, we assessed the situation, the time it'd take to add, the amount of money we had left, and said, yeah, there's no way this is gonna happen. Unless we split the 3 acts, with Act 1 launching in a couple months, and the other 2 launching a few months later as free updates. So we set our sights to just finalizing the first third of the game. As the pieces fell into place, we began some heavy playtesting to lock down everything. The tests were going great. People were loving the dialogue and characters, which meant I got to finalize everything I'd been holding off. How long till release again? Oh, that's 2 weeks. We gotta do polish and bug testing, fix some playtest issues. Oh no. Let me tell you, these 2 weeks, these were not good. Preston was done, so he was bug testing like a madman. Gunnar was fixing those fixes and putting in everything I sent, so he was coding like a madman. And I did not set myself up well. I had to do a lot of animations, I had so much dialogue to tweak, and the music. Throughout development, I'd stopped to compose about 4 of the 23 songs in the soundtrack. And after brute forcing my way through everything else, I had about 2 days to do the rest of the music. And I had no time left, but I also didn't want the music to suck, so I got creative. Some songs were swapped out with ethereal ambience, and any melodies I already had became motifs to build the soundtrack off of. Oh no! I composed as though I was writing my final symphony on release day. Fans were breathing down our neck, Gunnar and Preston were fixing 100 bugs a minute, until finally, the song that had me stumped for hours was done. The last changes were made, and I'm proud to say that Act 1 released on the day we promised. If you're west of Central Time. After 2 intense years, we were a wee bit burnt out. But seeing the excitement, the fan art, the theories, it really makes it all worth it. Even after all the effort, I don't think any of us expected the reception to be this positive. And hey, listen, buddy, if you could please try this game or tell your friends about it, it'd truly mean the world to us. It's only $10, you can totally refund it if it's not your thing, but I think you'll be surprised by how deep the story actually goes. Your money's used directly for funding development, and based on the current sales, Act 2 and 3 will probably be a bit smaller, as it's all we can really afford, but hey, if sales get high enough, who knows? We also got a Patreon if you want to support us there. There's a lot we didn't get to cover in this video, so if you want to see our entire journey, we've got a devlog series documenting the whole enchilada. And for those who've been here, cheering us on, supporting our journey, throwing us ideas, thank you so much. If you weren't here, I promise you Feed the Pit would have never released. Get ready, because challenge mode is about to drop, plus Act 2 in a few months. In our next video, we'll talk a bit about some of the dev stories we had to solve at the end of Act 1, and update you on how Act 2 is going. And finally, a huge shout out to the following patrons. That ends the entire journey to Feed the Pit Act 1's release. And now we gotta get Act 2 and 3 out. But seeing everyone's reactions to Act 1, I mean, it's hugely motivating for us. It shows that we didn't waste the last 2 years of our lives. We made something that mattered to people. And I am so proud of myself and Gunnar and Preston, and so happy to see people love it as much as we do. If you made it to the end of this video, you are a trooper. And now you are obligated to play Feed the Pit. Like, you have to now. I mean, you did all this work, like, you might as well see what we talked about this whole time. It's $9.99 on Steam, and it's on sale right this moment, as a matter of fact, actually. Or also, we have a Patreon. $25 members get a spot in the Feed the Pit yearbook. You could look like these guys. Isn't that so cool? Thank you very much to everyone who watched all the way through. And a massive thank you to all our patrons, with an extra special shout out to the following members: Suguri, Tibbers, Hunter Murphy, SirSmirkz, Dumbbird, Enigmaeve, Janitor Roy, Nessie Sky, Coop, Your Local Skinwalker, Red Moon Wolf 498, Ink Luna YT, Ryan Baker, OCRhino, Rain Vulturnus, Samantha, Dusty X_X, Brody Cloepfil, ZeraBreaksGames, NotMrScythe, MyNameTaam, Tremmer, Doublebooknerd, Theywastaken, nicoladayuri, Nikoo, Ekko, Lee Productions, justalittleguy, Siwilli, Maddo, Golden Foxy, and a Blind Potato 64. Thank you all so much.
And we'll